ch 167. Shiraba. I will get the door, so you should quickly get dressed, master. Saying so, she pulls Kaisai out of Schleier's embrace and stands him up while Saki relentlessly continues to knock on the door. Dairose seemed extremely calm despite the fact that this might end in a bloody mess if they handle it poorly. And you, wake up already. Seriously, how happy-go-lucky are you? Usually, Schleier was casually woken up by Dairose's kick. Even if she was sound asleep until earlier, anyone would wake up from that. Taking her mind off Schleier, Dairose put on her yukata like a bathrobe and headed to the door. Good morning. Your blood pressure seems to be out of control though. Are you okay? Dairose opened the door with a nonchalant attitude. On the other hand, Saki furiously glared at her. Oi, don't mess with me now. Do you realize what you've done? Kukaku. Well, don't get so angry. Anyway, come on in. I won't run, you know. You don't have to tell me to. Saki forcibly pushed Dairose aside and entered. For some reason, Nora was standing behind her with a strangely joyful expression. Since they were assigned the same room, she probably followed Saki here. It stinks. At least ventilate the room a little, will you? Yes, Mom. At Saki's harsh tone, the still half-asleep Schleier opened the window in panic. However, to prevent falling, the window could only open a little, so Kaisai, who managed to somehow put his yukata on in time, walked up to the wall to turn on the ventilation fan. You don't have to move. Come to me. However, Saki caught him and sat him next to herself. Kaisai was more worried about how she sat him down, but Saki looked at him with a worried expression. Are you okay? Did they do something awful to you? I'm fine, yeah, Kaisai replied so with a pale face, but Saki simply patted his head while glaring at Schleier and Dairose. In her head, it's impossible for Kaisai to invite the two over himself. That's why it's more likely that the two did something to coax him into the act. Sit. Yes. Perhaps feeling guilty about it, Schleier obediently sat down in front of Saki. On the other hand, Dairose sat down with a smile. Lastly, there was Nora, who sat down cross-legged beside Kaisai before tapping his shoulder. Now, he's sandwiched between Saki and Nora. You smell of other women again. I will have to overwrite it with mine later. Desayu. Nora whispered that into Kaisai's ear. His shoulders began to tremble. Despite the situation, Nora seems to be in an oddly good mood. However, ignoring her, Saki immediately started questioning Schleier and Dairose. I will have no excuse. Tell me what you guys are trying to achieve by doing this. Saki intensely glared at the two. On the receiving end, Schleier shrank back, but Dairose simply looked straight back into her eyes. Everything was for our and Master's happy future. It's not like we hold Master at gunpoint or anything after all. A happy future? Saki was about to snap at that extremely selfish reason, but before that, Dairose pulled out a piece of paper and showed it to her. Saki glared at the paper with a frown, but her expression immediately changed. This is a marriage registration. A Kalanchian one at that. Dairose is presenting something like that to Saki with a grin. Even I don't want to monopolize him alone, you know. So, how about it? Wanna take a bite? Nna. Schleier was so surprised that she almost stood up, but it seems the shock Saki received was greater than that. With a bead of sweat trickling down her forehead, her gaze alternates between the paper and Dairose's face. You flew in rage and ran over after all. Was that only because of your self-righteousness? Or maybe, you want him as well? Either way, we can cooperate. That was sudden, you bastard. You are trying to recruit me and make me your accomplice, right? I won't fall for it. I've already sworn that I will protect him after all. Saki's gaze, as she looked at Kaisai, started to be filled with reluctance. On the other hand, Dairose's confident attitude did not collapse. I've been thinking this for a long while now, but this man is too reckless. He flies into a battle alone as if it was the most natural thing to do. Moreover, the more challenging the battle becomes, the more this man gets excited from it. I feel bad for Master, but I want to stop this behavior of his. Feeling that the spear is now pointing in his direction, Kaisai looked at Dairose with surprise. However, without breaking her gaze, she continues. If we give him a big family, then even Master won't try anything too dangerous in the future. My goal is to have all of us marry Master together and have him quit being a mercenary. That's my plan. What? Fighting war is his life. That's why when she said that she wants to take that away, Kaisai started to panic. My head has a bomb attached to it, so the moment Master dies, my head would fly as well. But, even without such a thing, It's more than likely that I would just commit suicide if he dies. I love Master, which is why I want him to quit that dangerous job of his. Even I can see that. Of course, Saki doesn't want Kaisai to die. With that shared sentiment, Saki's anger immediately vanished. But I'm strong, right? I won't die that easily. On the other hand, Kaisai, who felt that the flow of the conversation had turned against him, hurriedly stood up and appealed so. However, this time Dairose gives him a stern look. Certainly, Master is strong. Your strength is enough to overcome careful planning and clever strategy. However, you are not invincible. How I once defeated you and took you prisoner is proof enough. At that time, if Dairose's goal was his life instead of his body, he would have already been dead. Dairose takes pride in being a genius tactician, but she's not confident enough to say that no one else can come up with the same strategy as her. In the first place, using hostages is like the basics of the basics. When she brought that up, Kaisai also couldn't argue back. He slowly sat down and nodded. Even I know that Kaisai-san values fighting on the battlefield very much. You always seem like you have a lot of fun whenever you go out to fight after all, said Schlier, who raised her face up with a resolute look. But I can't bear to see you put yourself in danger, especially when you fight in a place I can't reach. Schlier belongs to the royal family. She can't afford to accompany a mercenary like Kaisai into battle every time. Besides, even if it gets dangerous, she is not strong enough to protect him. That was a fact she didn't want to admit, but she has no other choice but to admit it. That's why she's resorting to using forcible means to enact this selfishness of hers. I guess, you are right. Arg, damn it. It seems I took my damn time, It was almost too late for me to realize too. With a deep sigh, Saki stood up and took the marriage registration from Dairose's hand. She then heads to the table in the corner of the room and checks its content. Since polygamy is common in Vald society, there are a lot of columns for the wives to write their names in. After gritting her teeth for a moment, Saki signed her name on the second column from the top. This is what you want, right? I like this guy too. I love him. I can't just leave him alone anymore. Saying so, she stood up and handed the paper over to Kaisai. On the other hand, Kaisai received it with cold sweat all over his body. I want to start a family with you. But, do you want to have a family with me? Kaisai started pondering on it. In 10 years or even 20 years after he gets old, can he picture himself with Saki at his side? He can. She's a little blunt, but she's a woman who he would always feel good to have by his side. As a wife, she's more than perfect for him. However, signing this means that I have to quit being a mercenary, right? Yeah. After thinking about it for a while, Kaisai stood up and quickly fixed his yukata. It was a mess since he was panicking when he put it on. He then looked at Schlier, Saki, and Dairose. At his side, Nora, who he couldn't bear to meet eye with, also looked at him with a frown. Let me think about it for a while. Saying so, Kaisai tottered out of the room. TLN, not much of a Shiroba. Still, that escalated quick. CH 168 complex. About 10 minutes after that, Kaisai was sitting crestfallen alone in the resort lounge. In his mind were questions that he can't just find the right answer to. Frankly, he himself has no qualm marrying them. Having spent the night with Schlier and Dairose has made him a little more confident. With Dairose's help, he probably wouldn't lose his life in intercourse with Valds. But to quit being a mercenary is another thing entirely, right? Kaisai groaned. He doesn't want to quit and he doesn't want to leave the battlefield. With his arms crossed, he continued to ponder on his choices, but he still couldn't make a decision. My lord. Good morning. Then, a person called out to him. It's Tursis. She's carrying a wooden sword and he can see the sweat on her body. She probably has just returned from outdoor training. Good morning. Hearing his dull reply, Tursis raised her eyebrows. Leaving the hallway, Tursis entered the lounge and sits down next to Kaisai. What are you doing in a place like this? When she asked so, the smell of her sweat drifted to his nose. Normally, you would regard such a smell as unpleasant, but perhaps the other party is a beautiful woman, The smell felt strangely sexy. Kaisai immediately shook his head to vanquish the dirty thoughts. It seems that he is still a little strange due to the repeated temptation from yesterday. Well, Kaisai reflexively tried to avoid the topic, but he immediately changed his mind and chose to consult Tursis instead. I need to consult you about something. Will you listen to my story? Yes, of course. Perhaps she intended to do so from the beginning. Tursis agreed with a smile. She may be a battle maniac, but she's not crazy. She's actually quite a considerate person. Actually, I was proposed to by multiple people. Then perhaps congratulations are in order. If this was Valentina, she probably would have made a scene already, but Tursis only replied calmly. A man being proposed to by multiple women is pretty much a norm in Vald society, so she doesn't think there was anything wrong about it at all. After all, just like normal Terran marriage, it would smoothly proceed as long as the involved party gave their consent. Yes, I'm happy with the proposal. Since I'm a pretty weird guy. I'm actually glad that they have that kind of feeling for me. But they also said that if I were to accept, I would have to give up being a mercenary too. Oh my. Tursis was surprised. She's also a combat enthusiast like Kaisai, so she can understand his feelings. Why would they demand such a thing? They said they don't want me to do anything dangerous. I see. I certainly can try my best to protect my lord on the battlefield, but nothing is certain in battle. It's true that something might happen to you, Tursis replied with a difficult expression. But my lord, you do not want to leave the battlefield, correct? Yeah. Phew. Tursis crossed her arms and pondered. For her, fighting alongside Kaisai on the battlefield is her joy. However, that was simply her selfish desire. Even if Kaisai leaves the battlefield behind him, she would follow him anywhere as his knight. One question, if I may, my lord. For what reason do you pilot a striker? NN? NNN. Because it's fun, I think. Then, why is it fun for you to pilot a striker? To Tursis's follow-up question, Kaisai turned silent. Personally, I stepped into the battlefield to improve my ability. I wish to fight stronger foes and test myself. It is so much fun for me that I can't have enough. But that's only me. What is it you get from the battlefield, my lord? Kaisai looked straight into Tursis's eyes with his determination. I am nothing if I can't ride a striker. I'm clumsy, my head is bad, and I'm physically weak. But if I have a striker, then you would be stronger than anyone, right? With a grin, Tursis replied. So, the reason why anyone ever said that they need me was because they saw how I'm on a striker. Kaisai thinks that his only selling point is his ability as a pilot. He is confident in his pilot skills but nothing else. He is a pilot, nothing more, nothing less. Giving up riding a striker would be like abandoning his reason for being. That's the complex he has. That's why 2 points, my lord. You have misunderstood. 2 points, Tursis said in a gentle voice. First, you are still needed by someone even if you are not on a striker. After all, they did propose to you. They wouldn't do that if they do not wish to spend the rest of their life with you. And that is regardless of your ability as a pilot. Second, even if you leave the battlefield, you can still ride a striker. There are still many roles you can play, such as a test pilot or a combat instructor. It's not like you cannot get serious unless you fight a real battle. No? Hearing Tursis's words, Kaisai's expression turned to a surprised one. He had never thought of using his skills that way before. I see, that's true. When she put it like that for him, everything became simple. After making his decision, Kaisai stands up. Thank you very much. I managed to clear the doubts out of my mind now. Then? Yes, it seems it's about time I throw in the towel. Tursis smiled at his old and familiar proverb. She then clapped her hands as though she remembered something. Come to think of it. If my lord is going to get married, then may I be allowed to request one thing? What is it? Feeling refreshed, Kaisai asked back with a smile. I do not mind if it's after things settle down with the others, but I wish to bear your offspring as well. Huh? His face stiffened and Kaisai himself was taken aback. However, Tursis did not shy away and simply continued to state her request. After all, I am also an aristocrat. I need a successor as well. That's why I'd like to ask my lord's help in that regard. I mean, why me? Kaisai believed in Tursis because she had never sexually harassed or tried to seduce him before. That's why he was so shocked by her request that could completely undermine his trust in her. I do not know what kind of feeling love is. However, I can say that this is not a request I would ask just anyone of. If I am going to bear a child, then I feel that I want it to be yours. A child of someone who has completely defeated me. Kaisai looked back at Tursis with an extremely awkward gaze. Her words sound almost like a proposal, but there was not a trace of any bashfulness in her. Of course, I do not wish to interfere with my lord's marriage life. You do not have to include me in the marriage register. You are fine with being a single mother? Kaisai asked in resignation. But I still need my own successor. If I allow the child of either my elder or younger sister to be my successor, then it would not be fair to the vassals who have supported me. In the end, Tursis is an aristocrat through and through. She has to take into account the matter of her own house as well, as it doesn't seem like she's going to yield in this. Kaisai let out a long sigh. Then please come with me. Nothing will change even if I add another bride to the list after all. Oh, you have my gratitude. Seeing the delighted Tursis, Kaisai heaved another sigh. However, it is still unbeknownst to him that the list of his brides will simply grow from now on. Ch 169. Checkmate. Have you made up your mind? Saki asked Kaisai, who returned to the room with a slightly tense expression. He quietly nodded and signed his name on the marriage registration which was left on the table. The next battlefield will be my last. But I will not give up piloting strikers. I want you all to acknowledge that. Of course. Shlia nodded and put her name in the uppermost wives column. Incidentally, it was customary for the person who put her name here to be treated as the main legal wife. Saki didn't fill in the top row because even if she's a little rotten, Shlia's still her superior. Pass it to me. I will write my name down too. You too? Tursis, who entered the room with Kaisai, took the form from her while Shlia bewilderedly stared at her. I was promised an offspring from my lord. You need not worry. I have no intention to get in your way. This is more or less just for formality. I see. Shlia moaned and glanced at Kaisai, but his face had only turned into something much like a shriveled vegetable. When he arrived at the resort, he did not expect that he would end up getting married. Not to mention with multiple brides. It happened all very suddenly, so he couldn't help but feel exhausted. Shlia felt that he was a little pitiful, but it was her who almost forced him into this marriage. It doesn't feel right if she's the only one who gets to have a good time with him while denying others. Reluctantly, she handed a pen to Tursis and let her sign her name on the form. Very well. Then it's my turn. Saying so, Diarose took the pen from Tursis while Saki stared at her with a stern expression. You too? HMPH, who do you think managed to get you all this far? Even a slave has the right to marry, so I'm simply exercising my right here. When she puts it like that, Saki can't argue back either. Certainly, it was clear that they wouldn't be able to get Kaisai to yield without her plan. Then it's checkmate. Kyufufu, it seems a complete victory is mine this time, huh? After finishing putting her name on the form, Diarose poked a little on Kaisai. Kaisai then collapsed on the tatami mat with a groan. Seeing that, Diarose leaned in on him and started pressing her chest against his back. They say marriage is the graveyard of life. How do you feel now after setting foot in one? It's not bad, but I'm exhausted. Kyufufufufu. Diarose was overjoyed. Having enough of that, Tursis tore her off and made her roll on the tatami mat. And as though it was natural, Saki followed that up with a kick to her butt. Ouch. Give it a rest. A woman's kick won't make me feel anything okay. Kaisai smiled bitterly at Diarose's complaints. Then, before he knew it, Nora approached him with a form of her own. Since it's already come to this, I want you to sign this too, Desu. What's this? The form seems similar to the marriage registration, but it appears to be something different. When Kaisai narrowed his eyes and asked what it was, Nora replied with a smile, an engagement form. Desu. With this, my name will be automatically included in your household when I turn 16. Desu. The form was made for the younger sisters who were not yet 16 years old that planned to marry the same man. If you submit the form at the same time as the marriage registration, they can forego taking repeated procedures in the future. You bastard. So you are that thorough. No wonder you were so cooperative. Of course, I was aiming for him too after all. That being said, I still need my reward. Desu. I understand. I've already prepared it, so don't worry. Saki and Shlia turned their eyes to Diarose and Nora, who were discussing something among themselves. They seemed to have arranged a secret agreement between each other beforehand. That's right. You are still only 14, right? Yes. If she found out I have a 14-years-old fiancé, my sister will beat me up for sure. Kaisai let out a sigh at the thought, but this mess was already a lot for anyone to take in. In the end, he signed the engagement form and Nora snatched it away with a joyful expression. Mufafu, it was worth letting that rotten woman have your first time. To think that it would go so well. Damn it. Just as Dairose said, this is no doubt Kaisai's complete defeat. People might envy this harem situation, but he can't help but feel a strange sense of defeat. By the way, the marriage is great and all, but what do we do about the surname? As though he just remembered, Kaisai raised a question. He did not expect to marry Evold, so he had never looked into it at all. In this case, it will be a series of all our family names combined. Kaisai-san, no, Kaisai. Perhaps she thought that she shouldn't be so formal to her spouse. Schleer phrased, after the marriage, your name will be Hokuto Henrietta Makishima Melemi Margarin Kaisai. That long? In short, the family name of Schleer, Saki, Tursis, and Dairose will be added to his in the order they put in the marriage registration. This would not happen if he marries sisters with the same surname though. Also, when I turn 16, Arcade will be added to the list too. Desu. Ha ha ha. What a long name, right? Once again, Kaisai collapsed his body down on the tatami mat. Seeing that, Dairose tapped his back with a grin. But you see, my dear master, don't you think you forgot something important? Something important? Is there anything else? Kaisai narrowed his eyes. I'm talking about the one who isn't here, namely, my foolish younger sister. Aren't you curious what kind of face she will make once she learns that she was left out of all this? Hearing that, Kaisai's face once again turned deep blue. TLN. The real Shiuraba is still ahead. CH 170. The sisters bond. Before she knew it, all the women around her had already reached the goal with Kaisai. Thinking of it from Valentina's point of view, that is certainly not something amusing. She will definitely be angry, right? I mean, rather than getting angry, she might actually cry, you know. That is way worse. Kaisai doesn't dislike Valentina either, so he's now holding his head while trying to find a solution. Speaking of Valentina, that woman. What do you think she's doing right now? We are all here in this room after all. She should suspect that something is up, right? If she barged in and see us now, this could get bloody, you know, Schleer said as she glanced at Saki. This samurai woman also carries her sword around with her like it's the most natural thing to do. Without Dairose, she might actually cut down Schleer even though she's her superior when she rushed over earlier. She's sound asleep right now. I gave her a sermon until late last night after all. Since she shared her room with Valentina, Tursis answered the question with her arm crossed. She gave a lengthy sermon to Valentina because of the incident yesterday with Kaisai. However, since she's now included in the marriage registration, Tursis also felt bad for her since she was the one who preached her all night. Phew, seems like we have some time then. Alright, let us decide on how to deal with my foolish little sister together. How to deal with her? What's this? Are you planning something evil again? Saki turned a distrustful gaze toward Dairose. She may have decided to not draw her blade earlier, but the grudge of being sent that bombshell of a picture still lingers in her mind. Well, you can put it like that too. That being said, since you all have already got on board with my plan, you are already my accomplices. It's not that evil of a plan, so just hear me out first. TSK. Saki turned away and clicked her tongue. Seeing that, Dairose snickered before continuing her words. First of all, I need Master to do one thing. What? You still want more from me? Well, sorry about this. I know that this is going to put Master in a tough spot, but please do this for us. Dairose was a little nervous since Kaisai is now looking at her with suspicion because of the series of events that her plan made him go through. She hurriedly apologized and hugged his small body. I don't want Master to do it either. Rather, it's because I love you that. Alright, I get it. Since the soft touch of her breasts made him recall his experience last night, Kaisai hurriedly escaped her embrace. Even though he had already experienced it once, it's still not enough for him to get used to it. Rather, since he now knows what the act entails, he feels even more embarrassed by her gesture. So, what do you want me to do? Simply put, I want you to marry Valentina." Yuah! Kaisai started screaming while rolling on the tatami mat. It's not that the thought of marrying her was unpleasant to him. He simply screamed at the growing number of his brides. He had already filled out a marriage form with 4 people and another engagement form with another. If he marries Valentina too, then the number of his brides would exceed the number of fingers on his hand. For Kaisai, who has the sensibility of a Terran, that number of brides is simply outrageous. I mean, I do feel sorry that I have to ask this, but us Volds have to inform our spouse in case one of our sisters wishes to get married to the said spouse, you see. Hearing Diarose explaining that while cold sweat trickled down her body, Schleier's mind was also hit by a lightning strike. Her sister, Frey, also wishes to marry Kaisai. As Diarose says, sharing a husband is a natural thing to do among sisters for Volds, and it would be considered dishonorable of her to deny her sister that. The sense of camaraderie inside a Vold organization may be weak, but their familial bond is extremely strong. Ah, right, to be frank, I may hate that woman's guts, but it would be too unfair if she's the only one that got left out. Perhaps we should at least include her name in the form. While saying that with suspicious behavior, Schleier made eye contact with Diarose. Seeing that, Diarose immediately realized that Schleier also wants to include her own sister as well. Resignation filled her expression for a moment, but Schleier's support is certainly needed. Without any choice, she decided to go along. That's right. Please think of it as doing me a favor and propose to my sister. Kaisai stayed silent for a while. He did recall the time when Diarose kidnapped him. Back then she offered Valentina to let her touch and lick his body. Their sisterly bond might be surprisingly strong. In the first place, it doesn't look like she holds a serious grudge against Valentina after her betrayal. Perhaps she's pushing this because she actually cares a lot for Valentina. Alright. In the end, Kaisai decided to do it. He already has goodwill toward Diarose from the beginning, so his feeling only became stronger after their bodies bonded. It's difficult for him now to turn down her request. Besides, he doesn't want to create a rift between Valentina and the others. Man, what a lady killer, Desu. Nora poked his side before nonchalantly adding that comment with a grin. And once again, Kaisai rolled on the tatami mat while raising a pathetic scream. That being said, I'm not saying that it has to be right now. Even if it's far out of her league, that foolish little sister of mine is actually aiming for the Empress seat after all. Hearing Diarose, Schleier's expression turned bitter. Certainly, she did say that she's going to become an Empress and marry Kaisai back at the Sukiyaki restaurant. However, that ambition put Schleier and the others in a bind. Becoming Empress of Nord and marrying Kaisai-san. Those two goals don't really go together, right? Trying to discern what exactly Diarose is trying to do, Schleier intensely glared at Diarose. Ch 171. A reckless dream. Valentina dreams of becoming Empress of Nord. Schleier would have no qualm with that if that's all Valentina wants. However, if her ambition is also tied with marrying Kaisai, Schleier is absolutely against it. First of all, that woman doesn't have what it takes to become an empress. I would never allow my beloved husband to get tangled with that reckless dream. Schleier shrugged and heaved a big sigh. Valentina is certainly talented, but much like Diarose, it's unlikely that she can achieve such a dream. Moreover, since she lacks Diarose's cunning, it's hard to believe that she has what it takes to unite such a vast nation. I am of the same opinion. If Nord loses this battle, the trust in the Empress will probably be shaken and the other princesses would try to rebel against her. In such a fierce civil war, I don't think that foolish sister of mine stands a chance of victory. It is common for Volds to rise up against their ruler. A nation can only be united through awe and fear. A princess who had already been defeated by a smaller nation would never be recognized as a leader. Her end goal is to bring Kaisai back to Nord as her husband, right? Both I and my princess here have our own reason why we want him to stay in Kalanshia. If I put it that way, then our goals are incompatible from the start, don't you think? Diarose nodded to Saki's point. That would be so. If my foolish little sister truly aims for the throne, then she won't be able to leave our country. Even I don't want her to involve Master in this. Setting her sights on the throne obviously means that she will get tangled with all the needless political conflicts after all. Then what do we do? With our objectives in conflict, I don't see us making any compromise though, said Tursis. Even though she's a Norwegian aristocrat, She has already stated that she will take Kalanchia's side. She probably intended to transfer the affiliation of her house and territory to Kalanchia using the turmoil in Nord. Since Tursis hails from one of the most powerful houses in the Nord Empire, doing so is certainly not impossible. She may be here by her lonesome, but back home she holds the position that can mobilize a fleet that can equal that of Kalanchia, or perhaps even greater after all. Of course, we will have her give up that dream. In the first place, I don't want my little sister to step inside the poisonous swamp of politics. Having a convenient position with no responsibilities is for the best. I just have to convince her. You mean becoming a slave like you? Naturally, I have the most enjoyable moment of my life as one after all. You think she will really be fine with that? Being a slave, I mean? Schleer shook her head sideways in resignation. Well, the plan is actually simple. We can just make her interests align with ours. We have the Norwegian army as our shared enemy after all. Unless she personally took down the Empress, her low succession order would not allow her to even contest for it. Well, in short, we only have to force her into a position that is convenient for us. Conversely, the moment she defeated the Empress, our interests would automatically align with hers, right? And obviously, the center of all their interests would be Kaisai. That's right. That's why she will eventually bare her fangs at us. Our best shot would be a counterattack. The best time we can use to take her by surprise is when she's about to launch a surprise attack on us. So the gist is the same, huh? I see. Aren't you crafty? Just say that I'm wise, will you? Diarose shrugged at Saki's teasing tone. In order for us to launch our counterattack at the right time, we need to keep her from going out of control when it's inconvenient for us. That's why we should keep this marriage matter away from her for now. If she found out about this, she would definitely drop every pretense and take the hard measures. I won't say that we can't win, but spreading discord among us just before a decisive battle is certainly not good. For better or worse, that woman is the leader of the Norwegian soldiers who participated in the rebellion after all. If we lose those soldiers, then we surely won't stand a chance. In the first place, Valentina's soldiers did not participate in the rebellion because of her charisma. If she points her sword at Nord again, they can't say for sure if the soldiers will be willing to fight. That being said, we should also give her some sense of crisis. It would be troublesome if my foolish little sister gets too optimistic and never come for us after all. Then let's find an opportunity to tell her. Like once the war ended, I tell her that I want to relax in Kalanchia for a while, proposed Kaisai as he lay on the tatami mat. While he was saying that, Nora straddled him like a horse. While she was riding him with a grin, Tursis grabbed her and threw her off. It would be better if you make it clear that you won't go with her for some time, huh? Let's go with that, said Diarose with a snap of her finger. We will keep her on the verge of exploding before we use the chance to launch our counterattack. Then, we use our number and force her to give in. I guess that's the basis of our strategy. Do you have to go that far to include your sister? Saki asked as she stared at Diarose with her eyes narrowed. No matter how she thinks about it, Diarose's plan sounds like one she would use on an enemy. As long as they have to cross swords, the danger is still too great. She sees no reason to risk that much for Valentina. That might be so ... but I do not want to abandon my sister ... rather, I will be fighting against my own mother, you know. Isn't it okay if I want to at least make my sister happy ... When Diarose brings up the topic of family, Saki couldn't argue back. With a sigh, she turned her gaze to Kaisai. In return, Kaisai smiles and agrees to the plan. This is going to be my last battlefield after all. Even if it turned out to be a little more difficult than I expected, I will definitely come through. I'm the wicked star, after all. Seriously, how reliable, Diarose unironically muttered. Even if it's a harsh battle, with the wicked star on their side, there would be nothing to worry about. That should be it for now. If we take too much time talking here, then that foolish little sister of mine would wake up after all. Right. Besides, this is the last day of our vacation too. I wouldn't want us to be holed up in here talking about boring stuff all day after all. Hearing Schleer, Diarose immediately snapped her gaze toward her. Did I not tell you that? I haven't heard anything about that. Me too. mp3, I didn't know too. I'm sorry. It appears that she didn't communicate with them properly. Thinking so, Schleer put her hands together and apologetically lowered her head. The army will be here to pick us up tomorrow morning. We will depart immediately after breakfast, so this is the final day we can leisurely play around. Oh no. The hot spring. Rose hurriedly stood up and began changing her clothes. It seems she really took a liking to the hot springs here. Apparently, she wants to enjoy it as much as possible before the end of their vacation. Please wait for me. Since she enjoyed herself to the fullest last night, Schleer is in desperate need of a bath. Meanwhile, Saki and the others who did not participate in last night's activity stare at her with cold eyes. CH 172. Dirty talk. 4 women now sweat inside the large sauna room in the corner of the hot spring. It was Schleer, Saki, Rose, and Nora. Saki didn't really want to bathe in the hot spring first thing in the morning, but since Nora told her that leaving Schleer and Rose alone again might lead to more shenanigans, she decided to join them. It's finally just her swimming, so please tell me all about it. Nora started the conversation with a nasty smile. About what? Playing oblivious again. Of course, I'm talking about Kaisai-san's. That, as his fiancé, it's obvious that I'm curious about it. Desu. She gets straight to the point. Schleer was taken aback a little, but Saki, who was listening to their conversation, had a grim expression on her face. Apparently, keeping an eye on the two was simply a pretext. Nora's real goal is to ask them about their first-time experience. Even if you ask how it was. Honestly, I can't remember much since I was very excited. You should at least remember how big it was, right? I at least want to know whether it was big or small. Desayu. Schleer's expression started to turn sloppy at Nora's question. It appears the memory of last night is coming to her mind. I think it was unexpectedly big. Well, I turned the light off right away, so I didn't manage to take a good look at it though. Even though he normally only looked cute to me, it seems he's a real lady killer, isn't he? Nora gulped. Even though his body is so small, the fact that that part of him is unexpectedly big made her curious about the wonder of the male body. While the two suddenly have this dirty talk, Saki silently looks at Schleer. So, did it feel good? It was so good that I would never do it by myself again. I think Volds generally have higher body specs and sexual desire that far exceeds that of Terrans. It may be her first time, but she didn't feel all that much pain at all. Fufu, I'm looking forward to it. Desu. Hearing you describe it made me want to just push him down and see for myself. Desu. Nora once again expressed her desire straightforwardly. After all, unlike Schleer and the others who were born an aristocrat, Nora doesn't seem to have any shame about such topics since she grew up in a slum. Should I give you a punch here? Saki said as she glared at Nora, but before she could raise her fist, Rose interjected. Hey, little girl. On Teru, it's a crime for a man to date a girl your age, you know? Huh? Nora looked back at Rose like it was the end of the world. The sweat on her forehead doesn't seem to be due to the sauna alone. But we are in a Vold country, Desayu. Terran law doesn't matter here, right? Besides, since I'm already engaged to him, there shouldn't be any problem. I mean, well, I guess that's true. Vold's law is quite loose on those who are dating on the premise of marriage. Naturally, there are still some limits. That's why Nora thought that it should be fine at her age. However, Rose shook her head and mercilessly struck her down. Are you going to push Master into a position where he can't even visit his own world? I can't say I can condone that. It's not like I can't understand your feelings, but at least you should wait until you can legally get married. No way. Nora was already half crying. She cooperated with Rose's evil plan because she thought that she could join in on the act once she's engaged with Kaisai. Having to wait 2 years for that is, to be honest, quite crushing. After all, her youthful libido is raging inside her even now. What a shame, perverted little girl. This is inevitable. Who are you calling perverted little girl? Everyone except Nora thought that it was obviously her, but they didn't say anything. As compensation, let me share my experience with you. I was on all 4, you see. Then I raised my butt up and made Mastress pee. You are just bragging, you idiot. Half angry, Nora grabbed Rose's arms and violently shook her. Since the fault obviously lay with Rose, neither Schleer nor Saki tried to stop her. Well, we can at least compensate you for the time being, you know. You can go on a date with him alone, for example. A date, huh? You think I'm just a child or something? Nora stopped shaking Diarose and glared at Schleer instead. It's not like she hates the idea, but she just can't help it since she's in a bad mood. Knowing that, Schleer continues her words. Being a child is okay, isn't it? When I was your age, I was attending an all-girl military academy after all. Back then, dating a cute boy was only a dream within a dream, you know. I'm more or less the same. To be honest, I'm the one who envies you. You are the only one young enough for him to pamper, you know. I mean, I'm more the type that wants to pamper him instead of being pampered though. With a deep sigh, Nora gazed at Schleer and Diarose. It doesn't seem she can get recognized as an adult. Well, even though she said this and that about it, being able to go on a date alone with Kaisai is certainly not a bad offer. If she can sneak him off somewhere and push him down, then she should be able to enjoy herself to some extent. Thinking so, Nora eventually decided to compromise. Alright, I got it. There's no way around it, Desu. Nora raised her hands in defeat and stood up. She then started walking toward the exit. Are you leaving already? It's a waste of time here after all, Desu. You two seem to have enjoyed your adult relationship with Kaisai-san to the fullest after all. I will go enjoy my childish relationship with him now, Desu. You at least are going to let me have that, right? Apparently, she intends to go play with Kaisai now. Recalling his tired expression, Schleer stood up in a hurry. If she has some restraints, then Schleer doesn't intend to say anything, but she will have to keep an eye on Nora in case she suddenly starts doing something outrageous. Please wait. If you plan to go to Kaisai-san, then I will go with you too. Seriously, what a pain. The two then loudly left the sauna. Left behind, the heat-filled sauna room fell into silence. After a while, however, Saki opened her mouth. Hey, what is it? How did it go with him last night? I mean, it's not like I'm curious about it. It's just a reference for the future. It appears that it wasn't only Nora who was interested in the dirty talk. Thinking so, a smile floated on Diarose's face. CH 173. Me too. In the sauna. About what you said, it seems you have some outrageous hobby, huh? Said Saki while averting her bright red face away from Diarose. It appears that Diarose's story from last night was a little too much stimulation for the still virgin Saki. With her legs squirming nervously, Saki continues speaking while glancing at Diarose. I mean, getting off from getting spanked is just too weird, right? It felt good, so there's no helping it, right? Besides, thanks to my fetish, I can make love to Master as much as I want without burdening him, you know? This worked super well in my favor in the end. For Diarose, who placed more importance on the spanking and such abusive plays, she gets satisfied quite easily when it comes to the main act. As she was also worried about Kaisai's body, she felt like expressing her gratitude to God for her disposition. Burden her. As she exhales, Saki rubs her sweaty chin. In the end, I don't want to force him to do anything that would be bad for his body. During the Act 1 mean. Saki blushed and said that before turning away. To that rather cute of a display, Diarose held in the urge to burst out laughing and kept a cool face. If she laughs at Saki here, then her head might really fly right off this time. It's not exactly bad on his body though. Even so, it's true that there's a huge gap between our physical strength and his. Even if he's all worn out, as long as the effect of our saliva is still active, his body wouldn't allow his thing to calm down after all. If we push him too much, then it will be bad. Right. That guy is pretty fragile after all. This is the Hokuto Kaisai who can vomit blood from maneuvering a striker alone. That's something that anyone can comfortably handle. If they go too far on him, then he might actually die during the act. Knowing how his body is, Saki can understand Diarose's fear. You have to be careful too, okay? Being in a marriage means that you will have to eventually do that, right? Saki's strong interest in Diarose's story is probably due to her thinking seriously about her relationship with Kaisai from now on. And as someone who has already got a head start, Diarose is giving her advice. Well, yeah, Saki shyly replied. In response, Diarose shrugged and shares her experience with her. If I hadn't stopped Schleer last night, it would have been a close call, you know. When we got too excited, then we might forget to put on a break after all. Seriously, even that good-for-nothing princess. Schleer is always curious about lewd stuff, but she's the type that would self-destruct when it comes to the real deal. It was a little hard to believe that she would attack a man like a beast in bed. Well, The fact that it was her first time might have played a part too. Still, even if it's only about the smallest of things, I don't want Master to have a bad image of sex. When Dairo said that with a serious face, Saki urged her to continue. It's embarrassing just to hear it, but as long as she's going through with this marriage, this kind of topic is inevitable. I've already experienced it once, but when our skins overlapped, rather than my body, it was my heart that felt more satisfied. Also, I want to be intimate with Master. That's why I think it's important that we are comfortable around each other. And just for that, I have a proposal for you. Dairo silently stares into Saki's eyes. Then after a short while, she continues, when you do it with Master, I want you to have someone around to act as a break. I still don't trust Schleer to do that yet, so I will be the one who does that for now though. After everything's said and done, you just want to increase the number of times you do it with him, aren't you? Saki stares at Saki with a slightly dubious look. It is certainly as Dairo said, but she still doesn't want another woman to be there when she's embracing her man. When I act as your break, I will not lay my hand on him. I couldn't endure it last time, but this is the best way to lessen the burden on Master. Having him dealing with us both at the same time is counterintuitive in the first place, right? Mew. If she went that far, then it's difficult to argue back. Saki too doesn't want to push Kaisai's body. For the time being, she decided to go along with Dairo's once and show her that she can properly control herself. At the moment, she doesn't have any choice but to compromise. No way around it then. I got it. So, well, I want to consult you about something. What? Just say it. It's a little hard to say, but Dairo smiles bitterly at Saki, who averted her eyes away again. With the conversation they are having, she has to wonder what's so difficult to say now. Because we are going to share the same husband, it's like we are sisters, right? As the elder sister, I wouldn't mind helping you out in a bind, you know. You being the older sister, huh? Somehow it doesn't sound that appealing though. Dairo's was the general of the enemy army until just recently. It would be a lie for Saki to say that she doesn't have any ill will toward her at all. Well, whatever. Also, tonight do you think I can sleep with Kaisai? Today, huh? Recalling Kaisai's exhausted expression, a deep frown formed on Dairo's face. Perhaps this reversed perspective is why I chose to start translating this series. CH 174. The second night crawling operation. Saki wants to join her body with Kaisai by the end of today. However, Kaisai was exhausted from last night, so Dairo's is finding it difficult to accommodate that. I mean, I understand what you think, I understand, but seeing Dairo's face, Saki hurriedly tries to make an excuse. She knew that the current Kaisai is far from his best condition. Moreover, they were just talking about how to lessen the burden on him just earlier. But if I miss today, there won't be another chance for this, you know. This is the last day of vacation. If we get back to the ship, when will I be able to sleep with him? Well, if the other soldiers catch you, then they will definitely gang up on you. After all, Kaisai is like an idol for the Kalanchian soldiers. It's not hard to imagine what terrible fate awaits those who manage to settle down with him. Even taking this hot spring trip alone is plenty deep in the danger zone already. In the first place, people normally are wandering around the ship even after lights out, right? It's just impossible to sneak to his room. Even if you manage to sneak in, they would suspect that something's up when the orderly came to make his bed in the morning. On that point, I agree that this is your best chance. The staff here are all professional, so they won't be snooping around either. Dairo's groaned and crossed her arms. Certainly, if Saki wants to get her feelings through to Kaisai, it has to be today. I guess it was also partly my fault that Master ended up all exhausted. Besides, it's me who motivated you to do this in the first place too. No way around it. I will help you. I see, thanks. Saki thanks her with a complicated expression. Perhaps she's wondering what she's doing asking her former enemy to help with such a thing. That being said, pushing it is no go. Are you confident that you can control yourself? Asked Dairo's while she impatiently tapped the sauna's wooden seat with her finger. Then, after pondering on it for a moment, Saki nodded. Yeah. At least I should be better than that good-for-nothing princess. The bar really is not that high. Well, fine. So, here's my suggestion. How about you take it slow with him without using your saliva? A man can get it up even without a kiss. A kiss on the lips is a natural thing for Volds to do before the actual act. Hearing Dirose's words that defy her common sense, Saki was so surprised that she jumped up from her seat. Terran men are like that in the first place. If Master feels like it, then he can get it up, no problem, I think. Is that so? I didn't know Terrans are such a perv. Saki's grandfather is also a Terran, but he has already passed away before she was born. With that being the case, Saki's understanding of Terran is no different from that of Vold women in general. The Terrans themselves don't want us to call them a pervert though. Well, no matter. On the other hand, Dirose, who has done her in-depth research on Terran men in advance, can only sigh at Saki's perception of them. With a shrug, she then continues her words. I'm sure that you have a lot you want to do in bed with him, right? I'm going to ask you to be patient this time. Anyway, you have to take it slow to ease Master into it. Take it slow. What's that? Is that even possible? Obviously it's possible. In short, just don't be violent with him. I only read about it in the books, but it seems that it would feel better for him if we take our time rather than be rough with him. If we go that route, then Master won't be that exhausted afterward either. I see. You've done your research, huh? You just learn more and more when you grow up as a virgin. I don't want to talk about it. Dirose is 27 years old. Her first time is not particularly late considering how hard a old woman can find a husband. However, she's around the age where her peers started to get married, so she started to grow insecure about it. After all, even while being a princess of a powerful empire, Vold society doesn't look kindly to those without a partner. Sure. Realizing that it's a sensitive topic, Saki gulped down her urge to question Dirose. Anyway, everything would go out the window if you lose control. Are you confident that you can stick to this plan? Saki thought about that for a while, but since she can't come up with a better plan, she clicked her tongue and glared at Dirose before agreeing to it. I just have to do it right. Even if I am a little corrupted by you, I'm still a knight. I will never do something that would hurt a man. For argument's sake, your princess is also a knight though. With a sigh, Dirose recalled the wild side of Schleer that ravaged Kaisai until she fell asleep. That being said, she has no choice but to trust in Saki's self-control. Very well. Alright, come back to me once you are done, persuaded Master. What are you being surprised for? Don't tell me you plan to attack him in his sleep. If you do that 2 nights in a row, then even Master would snap, you know. Isn't that your fault? Saki retorted so in her head, but she also realized that if she does that too, she would be no different from her. For the time being, just get his consent first. Since he got off his first time just fine, the bar for that shouldn't be that high. Right now Master's wall against sexual stuff should be very low. Just use that to your advantage. I see. Being the serious type, Saki has never hit on a man before. Suddenly being told to convince a man to sleep with her is just too much for her. I know that it sounds unreasonable, but this is your only chance. If you beg him for it, then he might agree out of pity. Simple, right? Doesn't that make me look super pathetic? Saki protested in tears, but she had no other choice. In the end, it was settled that today she will be seducing a man for the first time in her life. TLN. What am I translating? Ch 175. Luring out. For Saki, who has never even held hands with a man, asking a man to embrace her was an extremely high hurdle. After the bath, she immediately headed to see Kaisai, but since she just can't bring herself to speak to him, she ended up wasting a lot of time doing nothing. Pan. The sound of shogai pieces hitting the board echoed in the banquet hall. Dirose and Valentina are tirelessly trying to best each other. There, with that sound in the background, Saki glanced at Kaisai. He's lying asleep on the tatami mat using a folded cushion as his pillow. After the night crawling yesterday and the repeated offensive the day before that, it seems he couldn't get enough sleep, so he has been sleepy all day except for the mealtime. Don't you think monopolizing him during the day too is a little unfair, Desuka? But he would be uncomfortable with those shrimp legs of yours, right? This is my time to shine. With him in between, Schleer and Nora are glaring at each other. What they are fighting for is the right to give Kaisai a lap pillow. They are speaking quietly so that Valentina doesn't hear them, but one can almost see sparks flying between the two. What do I do? Saki quietly muttered to herself and frowned. In a situation like this, She can't possibly talk to Kaisai alone. That being said, it's not like she's confident that she can persuade him even if they are alone in the first place. What's wrong? You looked stressed. As Saki started groaning with a bitter expression, Tursis called her out. It seems that she's a little drunk and the alcohol in the cup she's carrying was already half gone. She isn't the type of woman that would start drinking midday, but maybe it's a celebratory drink for her marriage. Well, something came up, Saki replied with a difficult expression and glanced at Kaisai. With some idea of what's stressing her out, Tursis nods and replies with alcohol-scented breath. I see, it's about my lord, huh? Yeah. Those two are in your way, right? In a good mood, Tursis points to Schleer and Nora. You can tell her. Well, I wasn't born out of a bamboo shoot after all. I more or less get it. With a grin, Tursis tapped Saki's shoulder. She's not the type that is particularly sensitive about this kind of thing, but right now even Tursis can easily tell what's on Saki's mind. Phew, I see. Alright, since we are comrades that follow the path of swordsmanship, I don't mind helping you a little here. The moment she said that, Tursis stood up and chugged down the rest of the alcohol in her cup. Just like that, she walks up to Schleer and Nora before whispering something to the two. You two, can I have some of your time? What is it? You are not going to say that you want to give Kaisai-san a lap pillow too, right? Nora glares at Tursis with a distrustful gaze. Meanwhile, she may not be as outspoken as Nora, but Schleer also doesn't look like she's willing to welcome more competition either. No, that's not it. I just have a small favor to ask you too. Let's hear it then. Schleer answered with her arm crossed. Hearing that, Tursis cheerfully smiled before glancing at the sword on her waist. I'm worried that the vacation might make me soft. That's why I want to ask you two for some sparring session. Why us? Naturally, since Schleer is royalty, she is also trained in swordsmanship. But why does Tursis ask her for a spar at a time like this? That's nice, isn't it? However, Nora didn't share the same reluctance. With a daring smile, Nora stood up and stuck out her chest. Ah, that's great. Then please go spar with Tursis-san by all means. I will stay here to give Kaisai-san. Schleer said that while shooing Nora away, but in return, Nora snorted and beckoned Schleer to come closer. Since it seems that she wants to tell her something in secret, Schleer reluctantly crouched down to Nora's height. Isn't this our chance to put this cheeky woman in her place? Since she's a little drunk, we might be able to take her down if we go at her together. I see. Recalling the Caesar hell they were subjected to for their peeping attempt, it certainly was due to Tursis that she couldn't enjoy the sight of Kaisai's naked body back then. She also holds a little grudge from the numbness in her legs she was forced to endure during the punishment. With that being the case, the idea that she can get back at Tursis was a little tempting. Alright, let's do this. Schleer stood up with a nasty smile on her face before walking toward the exit. After that, Tursis turns back and winks at Saki once before following her out of the banquet hall. Tsk, now I owe her one. In any case, now the number of people around Kaisai has significantly decreased. Valentina is still here, but it seems that her mind is all focused on the Shogai match, so she has a lot of opportunities to talk with him. Gulping down her saliva, Saki tapped the sleeping Kaisai on his shoulder. NN, what is it? Awake? Kaisai rubbed his eyes while looking at Saki. He seems to be very tired, so it weighs quite heavy on her conscience. However, this is her only chance. After she mustered up her courage, Saki pointed toward the door and spoke to him. I have something to talk about with you alone. Can you come with me? Alone? Alone, Got it. Kaisai has some unpleasant premonitions in his mind from the way Saki looked, but after thinking about it for a little, he agreed. With a small stretch, Kaisai stands up. Thanks. With her face bright red, Saki tried to make her smile as friendly as possible. Ch 176. The convincing. Saki brought Kaisai to her room. After all, it is what it is. She wouldn't want others except for Dairose, who's already aware of the situation, to hear what she's about to ask him. So, what do you want to talk about? Asked Kaisai with his eyes narrowed. If it was something that she could talk about without any shame, then she would have talked about it right in the banquet hall. Since she brought him to her room without doing that, he can guess what kind of thing Saki wants to ask. Well, with her cheeks blushing like a ripe apple, Saki started to fumble her words. Being face to face with him made it even more difficult for her to say it. How do I... dot. Dot 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 you see... dot. You see... dot. Dot. Saki kept fidgeting and couldn't properly get to the main topic. At this point, rather than feeling frustrated about her indecisiveness, her attitude felt amusing to Kaisai instead. With a bitter smile, Kaisai tapped Saki's quivering shoulder. So dot dot what do you want? Dot. Dot. The two stared at each other without saying anything. Eventually, Saki's shame reached its limit, so she clenched her hands and squeezed her voice out. I want to sleep with you tonight. The extremely bashful Saki was very cute, but Kaisai's face immediately paled at her request. After all, he had already had his fill with yesterday and the day before that. He's very, very tired. In the end, being the physically weak Terran that he is, dealing with two worlds with unlimited libido at the same time was exhausting for him. Of course, he doesn't hate the idea of sleeping with Saki. Since they are going to marry each other, he expected it would come to that eventually. That being said, it's hard for him to do that 2 days in a row. Even Schleer was a little scary last night. If even Saki is going to turn out like that in bed, he might not be able to live to see tomorrow morning. When she saw Kaisai's unenthusiastic state, Saki was a little depressed. However, his reaction was expected. If she's going to withdraw from just this, then she wouldn't have started this conversation in the first place. Wringing out more of her courage, Saki tightly grabbed Kaisai's shoulders. Please. I promise I won't go overboard. It's a little irritating, but Dairose can be there too. Even if I can't stop myself, she will be there to stop me. It's her again? Even Kaisai was fed up with her antics. The series of offensives he has endured for the past 2 days certainly wasn't all unpleasant, but he's still mentally exhausted because of her. If Dairose is going to put him through that again, then it will be really rough for him. That's not it. Rather, she tried to stop me, you know. But, even so, I want to. Do it with you. Kaisai groaned. Saki is a sporty black-haired beauty with good style. Her appearance is exactly Kaisai's type. Naturally, he's very happy when someone like her asks him to be her partner. However, his reason is telling him that to be sleeping with different women each night would make it feel like he's cheating on them. His idea about this kind of relationship is pretty serious. That's why even without his exhaustion, he still finds it hard to agree. Please, I beg you. If I miss today, then there won't be another chance again. We can't do this back on the ship, right? So, please. Almost half crying already, Saki clings to Kaisai. After being told how those two thieving cats slept with you, I've already reached my limit. I'm so horny I can't help it. They told you that much? Kaisai covered his bright red face with his hands. It's not that he doesn't want them to talk about it at all, but it's still embarrassing for him. Also, you don't have to worry about your body, okay? It's something Dairose told me about, but we can do this thing called slow sex, and it won't tire you out. Let's go with that tonight. Let's me. Come on. Kaisai can't help but think that it would be more tiring instead if they take their time. Why? You are fine doing it with them, but you don't want to do it with me. Do you really hate the idea that much? Jigagagagi. When she put it like that with tears in her eyes, it was difficult for him to turn her down. Kaisai let out a pathetic groan. Since he's agreed to marry her, he of course thinks of her quite favorably. Seeing her looking sad like this only pains him. I got it. Tonight, right? Thank you. When Kaisai reluctantly agreed, Saki thanked him with a pathetic-sounding voice and hugged him tightly. Her relief made her put too much strength into it that Kaisai started yelping a little. Sorry. Be more careful tonight, okay? When Kaisai replied with an awkward expression, Saki repeatedly nodded to him. I hope I won't die from this before the war ends though. Seeing the extreme happiness on her face, Kaisai half-seriously started to consider the danger to his life. CH 177, Ani-chan. I've done it again. The moment he woke up, Kaisai was assaulted by a deep self-loathing. While his whole body felt lethargic, the warmth from another person's skin on his body evokes his memory from last night. In the end, he ended up spending the night with Saki. What? Why are you making that face? Saki, who seems to have woken up before Kaisai, asked him so with a pout. The two are sharing a futon, their naked bodies intertwined in an embrace. In addition, there's also the naked Dairose, who's soundly sleeping with her arms around both of them. He has woken up like this second day in a row. The fact that he has a different partner today doesn't sit well with Kaisai. Doesn't this make me look like a cheating scum? Thought Kaisai as he was astounded by his own recent behavior. No, well it was my bad. I won't force you to do something like this anymore. It seems Saki thought that the reason behind his difficult expression was her forcefulness yesterday. In the first place, Volt's people would never understand Kaisai's internal conflict since polygamy is a normal thing for them. No, it's not your fault, Saki, Oni-chan. Saki said that in a resolute tone and tightened her arms around him. Call me Oni-chan like you did last night. You can at least do that when we are alone, right? For some reason, when they got down to business yesterday, Saki asked him to call her Oni-chan. Kaisai was confused at first, but he decided to play along in the end. That being said, Kaisai also has his real elder sister. It wouldn't be a joke if he accidentally calls Saki Oni-chan when he introduces her to his family. Fine. However, perhaps due to the guilt from making her feel bad earlier, he agreed to call her Oni-chan this time as well. As Kaisai sighed to himself, Dairose's hand had gently stroked his hair. And you called me a pervert. You are just as bad, right? Seriously. With a big yawn, Dairose smiled and said that in a low voice. It appears she woke up when Saki and Kaisai were talking. After another big yawn, Dairose rubbed her cheeks against Kaisai's body. Master, how's your body? Is it painful anywhere? I'm fine. It went a lot easier on me than the day before. Phew, I guess slow sex was the correct answer after all. Maybe I can ask you to do the same for me next time. During the deed last night, rather than participating, Dairose was focused on providing them support. Either because she worried about Kaisai's physical condition, or because she was already satisfied herself the night before, she was much more patient than when she was in the Norwegian army. What about you? Did you enjoy your first bite of a man? That's quite nasty way to put it, you know. Saki answers with a stern look. Still, last night was overall a success for her. To be honest, she wants to try going rougher since she took it slow this time, but it would be inappropriate to talk about their next time after what they put Kaisai through 2 days in a row. Thinking so, Saki continues her words with her cheeks bright red. It was a shame I couldn't take your lips, but, well, doing it this way is nice too. With a light smile, Saki kisses Kaisai on his forehead. On the other hand, Kaisai blushed a little before kissing her back on her forehead. Phew. Seeing that, Dairose grins. She then moves behind Saki and robs Kaisai of his lips. Ah, you bastard. She held back on the saliva exchange last night since it will put a heavy burden on Kaisai's body, so Saki was obviously pissed when Dairose just casually kissed him on the lips right in front of her. Kufufu, making him taste our saliva would certainly be bad, but conversely, kissing alone is just fine, no? Besides, Terrans usually kiss their partner on the lips, so it would be more fun for him this way too, you know. Mew. Saki listened with a pout on her face before taking a few deep breaths and placing her lips on Kaisai's. It's not bad, but, somehow, it makes my heart race. Saki's breathing turned rough after she parted her lips away from him. There, Dairose whispers into her ear. Well, a kiss on the lips is like a starting signal for sex after all. So it wasn't just an act to trigger a man's instinct, Since it was clearly dirty talk, so Saki replied in a small voice since she doesn't want Kaisai to hear it. They've already shown their most embarrassing parts to each other, so it's a little too late for that though. Well, leaving that aside. Me too, master. Dairose shrugged and pushed her forehead close to Kaisai's lips. She wants a kiss on her forehead as well. With a small sigh, Kaisai did just that. After that, Dairose gives him a big smile in return and kisses him back on the forehead too. After a long sigh, Dairose left the futon and sits naked on the tatami mat while looking outside the window. Seeing the rising sun and the refreshing blue sky outside, she let out another sigh. Happiness. To think that loving and being loved can provide this much satisfaction to a person. I hope that it's not just one way though. With her arms still around Kaisai, Saki said that as though she was trying to admonish herself. On the other hand, Kaisai smiles bitterly at her gentle touch. I think it's not one way, you know. Saying so, he squeezed Saki's hand. TLN, well, that's a fetish. CH 178. The return. The last day of the vacation was, simply put, hectic. With Schlier's position as the highest authority of the whole Kalanshir army, military matters that required her attention naturally accumulated in her long absence, and the army sent a car to pick them up early in the morning. The group only had a short time to bathe in the hot spring and have breakfast before they had to hop on the bus back to the base. Just recalling the event in the morning already made Kaisai let out a long sigh. It's been 30 minutes since they left the resort. The bus that the army sent to pick them up was not exactly a comfortable ride either. With the shaky ride, Kaisai had to grab onto his rattling seat as he looked at Schlier, who sits opposite of him. Well, I mean, our budget is quite limited, so we have to cut costs wherever we can. Still, I don't think this kind of ride is suitable for a princess though. I'm not saying that they should have sent a hovercraft for us, but don't they have any decent ride at all? Next to Schlier, Valentina grumbles with a difficult expression. If a car like this was arranged for an aristocrat back in Nord, the person in charge would probably find themselves decapitated after all. Well, if the royal family rides something too expensive and this economy, we might actually get stoned by our citizens after all. We are doing this to appeal that we are no different from our common class people as well. It's two birds with one stone. Rather than trying to make yourself look like a commoner, I think your mindset already belongs to one though. Although how an aristocrat should behave differs from country to country, Valentina has never seen a worse environment for one. It made her hesitate whether she wanted to laugh at Schlier or was simply astounded by the situation. Well, there's no use talking about it. We have been away for a while, right? How's the army holding up? Although they are waiting for the Nord Empire to make the first move, the Kalanchian army is not just spending time loitering around either. Even if it is now in better shape than when Kaisai joined up, the Kalanchian army's situation right now is like they are on the edge of a cliff. Even one defeat could spell their total collapse. About the army, we are currently rebuilding our forces while preparing a network for an immediate response system. Thanks to my sister, we have managed to gather a lot of supplies as well. Your sister, you mean Fresan? Schlier's twin sister, Frey Henrietta, is the head of the Kalanchian army's logistic department. Recalling how she looked exactly like Schlier, Kaisai asked for confirmation. Yes, she went around to neighboring countries and negotiated some relief supplies for us. Impressed, Kaisai's eyes widened. The reason the other countries are so ready to provide them with supplies is probably that they fear that they might be next if Kalanshir falls. Being able to get supplies from other nations without forming an alliance with them is certainly great. Also, from the business side, the Kawashima Ironworks has also sent us a team of technical advisors. They should be refurbishing our zeniths as we speak. Your zeniths are quite different from ours after all. Even with the 4 heavenly out of the picture, Nord still has many powerful aces and zeniths left. If our zeniths can't put up a proper fight, I would be troubled. Valentina placed an emphasis on that. After all, it was thanks to Kaisai's skill that they managed to take down Nord's powerful zeniths. It would be bad if the rest of them can't put up a proper fight against their elite enemies. I told them to strengthen our strikers as much as possible before we left. For the budget. Well, since you all have donated so much, I think that it will be enough. Schlier answers with a complicated expression. Unlike the poor Schlier, Valentina and Tursis both have vast financial power. A part of that has flowed into Kalanshir's military budget. She's grateful for their contribution to the strengthening of her army, but she's also troubled since they might exercise their influence as their investors. To her, that's quite a difficult thing to deal with. Leaving that aside, what about Nord's forces? Even if you've already turned to our side, you used to be high up in their army, right? Can you guess what kind of move they will make? The Kalanchian intelligence department couldn't come up with any great results. They are aware that Nord is reorganizing their army, but that's it. After all, with Nord being a superpower, their measly intelligence department can't possibly match Nord's elite counterintelligence. They already know that we've betrayed them after all. I can't tell much. Still, I think that their aristocratic armies have finished assembling. They should be gathering mercenaries right about now. Mercenaries, huh? They stopped minding their appearance, it seems. Kaisai groaned while scratching his cheek. Normally, A powerful nation with a strong standing army wouldn't resort to employing mercenaries. It appears Nord really wants to crush Kalanchia this time. It would be easier if the enemy underestimated them, but it seems that won't be the case this time. It's already well known that Kalanchia has my love fighting on their side after all. Some famous mercenaries who want to try and defeat you for fame might join up with Nord this time. We should be careful. Valentina said so with a smile. On the other hand, Kaisai acted as though he was troubled and let out a small sigh. Being a celebrity sure is troublesome, huh? Seriously. Ch 179. The Empress. Around the same time, at the Nord Imperial Court, a rare sense of urgency lingered in the atmosphere. Norwegian Empress Wilicia Renduagrin was glaring at her vassals. Her expression did not hide her foul mood. Lords, bureaucrats, ministers ... all of them nervously stand side by side before their empress. Empress Wilicia silently taps the armrest of her gorgeous throne with her finger. Her eyes coldly glared at the military officer who was prostrating before her. So ... half of the forces dispatched to Kalanchia has rebelled. That is confirmed? Yes, with a quivering voice. The officer answers. Her Highness Valentina ... No. Valentina has suddenly staged an uprising and took control of half of the army and joined up with the Kalanchians to remove Her Highness Diarose. A loser deserves no respect. Ditch the honorifics, said the Empress while she's using her finger to play with her plentiful and wavy long blonde hair. Her voice does not contain even a shred of worry for her daughter's well-being. Since the day the report came that Diarose was defeated, she has never once tried to confirm her safety. To think that the like of Valentina would stage an uprising. It seems that I was taken lightly, huh? The Empress disdainfully spits. Her anger frightened the young officer. I need that fool's head on the guillotine as soon as possible. About that ... Your Majesty, may I suggest something first? One of the soldiers raised her hand up with a pale face. The Empress directed a sharp gaze at the soldier, but she allowed the soldier to speak by silently giving her a nod. Our intelligence has reported that Her High Comma ... Diarose is safe. It appears that she's being held as a prisoner of war in Kalanchia's capital. If Your Majesty would allow us to sortie an elite rescue team, I believe that we will be able to extract her. If they dispatch a team of elite special forces using a high-speed vessel, they should be able to rescue Diarose much faster than dispatching a whole fleet. The army thinks that rescuing Diarose should take priority before they begin their battle in earnest. However, no need. I have no use for a daughter who failed such a simple mission. It would be less of a hassle if I have her executed together with Valentina after she's caught. To the Empress, Diarose was already dead. She doesn't need a pawn that can't enact her orders. If she's dead then fine, if she's alive, have her executed. That's all. How ... As you command. Seeing the dissatisfaction on the Empress's face, the soldier hurriedly withdrew. The Empress watched it happening with a frosty gaze, but she soon turned her eyes to the Minister of Military Affairs. Is the fleet ready yet? It's a common occurrence. Some time has already passed since the news of Diarose's defeat arrived. Nonetheless, the Empress never grew tired of berating her vassals and rushing the organization of a new army. The aristocratic army has already assembled. However, the mercenaries yes, unfortunately, the number of applicants has not reached the number we expected. Mercenaries and the likes usually pour in like a flood when the recruitment was announced. Naturally, Nord has prepared plentiful compensations and they also use various channels of recruitment. However, it was mysterious how they can't seem to assemble that many mercenaries at all. Your Majesty, our aristocrats and the Imperial Army alone is strong enough to defeat our enemy. I believe we have no need to rely on the mercenaries. One of the lords nervously voiced her opinion. True enough. The Imperial Army alone rivals the entirety of the forces a small country can muster up. On the grand scale of things, the number of rebels doesn't amount to much compared to the full might of the Imperial Army. That's why it doesn't make sense for them to go out of their way to hire mercenaries to add to their number. Defeating them alone is not enough. What we need to do is to thoroughly annihilate the rebels. This victory must be overwhelming and one-sided so that fools like Valentina may never appear again. The Empress said so with a relaxed expression, but that was just a front. She is actually being cautious of the Kalanchians' secret weapon. In the initial invasion, she's sent enough force to guarantee a complete victory. There must be some kind of reason for Diarose's defeat. Naturally, she has already obtained the information that the mercenary called their Wicked Star has joined the Kalanchans, but it's simply unthinkable for a lone mercenary to turn the tide of war. She also suspected that other countries may secretly send reinforcements to Kalanchia in the future. That's why she wants to strengthen her side as much as possible. If the recruitment is delayed any longer, then have the person in charge executed. Am I understood? Why? Yes, Your Majesty. The Minister of Military Affairs answers while drenching in a cold sweat. The Empress always comes through on her words. I can't afford to lose her subordinate to a silly matter like this. Thinking so, the minister hurriedly relayed her instructions to her subordinates. Ch 180. Mercenary recruitment. What do you do if you can't gather enough mercenaries? The recruiters came up with a solution. They are now holding a recruiting session that provides compensation just by attending. A large rental conference room was rented on a trading planet, and many famous mercenaries that are active in nearby systems have gathered there. Everyone, thank you for coming. An imperial military officer in a suit greets the mercenaries with a cold sweat. In front of her were various mercenaries who wear whatever they want with no regard for the dress code. All of them appear to be fierce warriors, and their atmosphere is pretty intimidating. It would be unreasonable to ask her not to be nervous speaking in front of them. Enough with the pleasantry. Where's the money? A mercenary said in an unmotivated voice. Her expression showed that she only wanted the money and quickly go home afterward. These women were invited specifically by name, and they only attended because they heard that they will be rewarded just by attending this briefing. The compensation will be transferred to your bank account after the briefing is over. So, while wiping the sweat on her forehead, the officer lowered her head as though she was begging for the mercenaries to stay. The temperature in the room is by no means high, but being subjected to the mercenaries' gazes, the officer can't help but sweat. You don't need to brief us about anything. Most people who came today must have already looked into the situation after all. An old woman casually said that while waving her hand to dismiss the officer. She seems to be at an age where she shouldn't be active anymore, but she's actually the head of a well-known mercenary corps. In reply, the other mercenaries all silently nodded at her words. To put it simply, you want to invade Kalanchia, right? Well, do whatever you want. Leave me out of it. Why? Kalanchia is but a small country with a meager army. It should be a simple job of crushing some old scrap strikers with your zeniths. This amount of reward should be more than sufficient. Her outrage is understandable, since her boss's head will literally fly if the recruitment takes any longer than this. The Imperial Army also allocated as much budget as they can to this effort, and the reward here is exorbitant considering the scale of this war. Who cares about the reward? That wicked star is there in Kalanchia, right? Another mercenary said in a sore mood. Well, yes, we've confirmed that the mercenary who goes by the second name is currently being employed. However, a single ace or two shouldn't be a big problem to you, all right? A powerful pilot is certainly troublesome to deal with, but in the end, that's just one person. The Imperial Army believes that they can win this war through sheer numbers. That being said, things are not so simple, since Diarose was captured before she sent the report back to Nord, so they will be going in almost blind inside an enemy turf. The old woman sighs and shrugs as though she's dealing with a fool. Seeing that, the mercenaries around her started to giggle. What? If their wicked star is on the enemy side, then you definitely will lose. You can't just chalk the guy up as an ace. That's a real bad omen. It's not that I believe in bad omens in general, but don't ask me to join if that person's going to show up, the old woman said with her wrinkled face distorted. Right now the bunch that does not take the name wicked star seriously are either newbies or reckless fools. I learned my lesson a year ago. Apparently, the old woman has fought wicked star before. Meanwhile, another mercenary seems to sympathize with her. I agree. There are not that many of us who would willingly join a losing battle, and there are only a few newbies that will try to use this chance to prove themselves. Now you understand? Understand what? The officer shouted internally, but managed to prevent that retort from bursting out loud. After taking a few deep breaths, the officer continues, speaking in a softer voice. Come on, that's just an exaggeration. The rumors say that this wicked star is actually a man too. There's no way intergalactically famous mercenaries such as you all cannot deal with him. The old woman snorted. A blue vein popped on her forehead. It seems I can't talk any sense to you. I'm leaving. The moment she said that, the old woman got up and started walking to the exit. The mercenaries around her also began to leave. The officer hurriedly tried to stop them, but she was immediately shut down by their glare. Naoe, left behind. The officer pitifully groaned. After all, if she fails this job, her head might be going to the guillotine as well. When she was wondering if she should escape the country, a woman suddenly tapped her shoulder. "I have a question." In a hurry, the officer looked back at the young mercenary with long ice blue hair. The officer immediately recognized her face since she had read the file of every attendee beforehand. "You are Chief Makina of the Weibel Hounds?" The Weibel Hounds is a famous band of mercenaries that own multiple battleships. Their leader, Makina, is also said to be a top ace when it comes to striker combat. "Of course, please ask away by all means." If she can hire the Weibel Hounds, then she could at least avoid the guillotine. So the officer happily replied, "Is it true that Wicked Star is going to appear?" "Why, yes, that is correct. We received that information from our intelligence agency, so there's no mistake." Fume. Makina's groan somehow contains a clearly uplifting mood. She clearly has a different attitude from her unmotivated colleagues. No. We the Weibel Hounds was looking for a chance to have a rematch with him. This is good. We'd like to join. It appears that she has some kind of personal agenda with the Wicked Star. Anyway, since she managed to hire someone, it seems that she has escaped decapitation for the time being. Thinking so, the officer strokes her chest in relief. CH 181. Refurbishment. After he returned from the vacation and got back on board their radiant, Kaisai's group was greeted by their chief mechanic, who clearly seems to be sleep-deprived. She then leads him to the maintenance deck in a strangely good mood. It seems there's something she wants to show him. This is the maintenance deck, which is much smaller than the storage deck, is a place where they perform heavy maintenance work on strikers. The place normally only has a few crew, but right now it is crowded with mechanics busily working on the Zeniths. We have been ordered to refurbish our strikers to be able to compete with the Noridian ones you see. Right now we are in the middle of remodeling our Zenith types. Certainly, Schleer did say something about that. Kaisai was impressed as he looked around the place. Surprisingly, he even found a mechanic that seemed to be a Terran like him. Those people came from Kawashima Ironworks. This time they sent over their technicians along with the parts we ordered. Since they are here, I asked them to help us out. "I see," Kaisai replied while feeling a little disappointed. Even if they are certainly Terrans, all of them are women. Since companies that operate on the intergalactic scale understand the danger of having their male employees working off-world, it's only natural for them to send a team fully consisting of women. Still, he also wants to talk to a man who shares his birthplace once in a while. "Does that mean you are working on Caliburn Revive, too?" "Of course. I went out of my way to pick you up because I wanted to show you our work after all." When the chief mechanic said that with a grin, Kaisai and Saki looked at each other. Incidentally, only the two of them and Dairose, who couldn't leave Kaisai's side, followed the chief mechanic here. "It's that way. Look, it's amazing, isn't it?" Saying so, the chief pointed her finger to a striker that is currently being fixed onto the wall. Its characteristic rabbit ear-like antenna seems familiar to him, but the Caliburn Revive has changed a lot from what he remembers. After all, it is now fitted with thick jet black armor parts all over its body. The chest armor. Don't tell me, it's from Zentis. Dairose was shocked. "Yes, since we managed to get our hands on such an ultra-high performance striker from Nord, so we took its parts and made full use of it. By the way, who is this noble-looking person here?" The chief turned a doubtful gaze at Dairose, who's quivering from the fact that she just heard that her personal striker was torn apart. At the moment, she's wearing a high-performance military long coat that is usually provided to Kalanchian Marines. That's probably why the chief couldn't tell who she was. "I'm the pilot of the machine you've just disassembled. That's WHOAHH? The chief was astonished. She was busy with all the refurbishment here that she didn't hear about how Dairose became a slave. That means you are Nord's former commander?" "No way." "Yes, way." "Well, I'm already freed from that suffocating position though. Right now I'm a slave serving my master here." With a loose smile, Dairose smacks Kaisai on the shoulder. "Is that true?" "Yeah, it's true. It's a little irritating though," Saki added as she shook her head sideways while holding her head. Seeing that she's not joking, the chief's face immediately stiffened as she took a step back. "No way. Rather, I was ordered to remodel Caliburn, to be a two-seater. Don't tell me. Dirose's slave collar was designed to detonate if she was separated from the designated master after a set amount of time. With the radio jamming that's common on the battlefield, the only way to guarantee that her head would not accidentally fly off is to put her in the same machine as Kaisai. It seems that Schleer has taken care of that before they left for vacation. It's probably because I will be riding it too. My body can't stand being apart from Master after all. Is that really okay? Having a former enemy being on board the same vessel as your ace is naturally concerning. There's no guarantee that she won't suddenly assault Kaisai inside. After all, no matter how good a striker it is, if the pilot is taken out then it's over. It's okay, probably. Right now Dirose doesn't even consider returning to Nord. Thinking so, Kaisai replied in her stead while looking at Dirose with a bitter smile. On the other hand, Dirose looked back with her eyes sparkling. Rotten as she is, they are already in the kind of relationship where they lay in bed together. He can get what she wanted to say. With a sigh, Kaisai decides to go along. Hand off. Immediately after, Dirose placed her hand on Kaisai's with a big smile. Sit off. With a momentum that almost made a swooshing sound, Dirose quickly sat down. Her expression seemed ecstatic for some reason. Of course, since they've started that play in public, the eyes from their surroundings started to gather on them. As you can see, she's completely obedient. We've been fighting for our lives, against this idiot-looking woman. The chief shook her head as though she'd just witnessed something she wished she shouldn't have. Well, more importantly, you've made the best out of this shameless idiot's zenith right there. Caliburn revive must have been improved a lot. Saki changed the subject to dispel the awkward air around them. Next to her, Kaisai strokes Dirose's head and she stands up with a happy smile. Why, yes, we made a lot of changes. You can almost say that it's an entirely different striker now. To differentiate it, we are calling it Excaliburn now. Excaliburn. Filled with anticipation, Kaisai once again turns his gaze back to his Nari-modeled striker. CH-182 Excaliburn. In the first place, this striker was built as a prototype for Excalibur. Since it's now greatly outperforming the original, Excalibur, we want to differentiate it so we gave it a new name, Excaliburn. How is it? Not bad, right? The chief mechanic proudly presented her work, but right now the Excaliburn seemed unfinished as it gives off the atmosphere of a striker that is a product of a forceful fusion of Kalantian and Noridian strikers. Noticing the complicated expression on Kaisai's face, the chief hurriedly continues her explanation. I mean, we've done a rough work on it so it's still unfinished. Please don't worry, after we add the finishing touch it will look better. I don't want to pilot a lame striker either. Well, do your best, okay? I get where you are coming from, but don't just haughtily give order to others, damn it. When Dirose overbearingly voiced her opinion while crossing her arms, Saki glared at her. However, since she did help Saki out last night, she casually looked back at her and it was Saki who ended up frowning and averting her glare away instead. By the way, what part did you improve it on? Appearance aside, as a pilot, Kaisai is more concerned about how it works. Hearing his question, the chief immediately replied with a grin. The biggest change we made was to the engine. We replaced the conventional phase transition turbine with the ultra-high output one we took from Xantis. Thanks to that it now has a 50% increase in maximum output. That's a lot. Rather, you managed to replace the engine? I thought that the manufacturers were different though. About that, we cut out the engine mount frame on this part here a little, like this, and put it in. Is that even okay? Hearing how they cut a part of the frame out, even Kaisai began to question the decision. In reply, the chief averted her eyes away with a vague expression on her face. We've reinforced it afterwards so it's totally fine. Probably. Kaisai frowned at that anxiety-inducing word. The armor has also been greatly strengthened, you know. Noridian royal strikers usually pack an excessive amount of armor plate after all. Not only the ones we pulled from Xantis, we also took some spare armor stored on their battleship to make it even sturdier too. Do I really need that much armor? Well, I guess it's better to have than not. This guy hasn't even got hit before after all. Although he has been through a lot of tough battles, the striker he piloted almost never gets hit. Rather than adding more armor to his striker, He would appreciate a lighter weight that would allow him more ease of movement. I mean, how do I say this? Since we added a second seat to the cockpit and a new engine, the old armor frame just doesn't have enough space. Zentis was a pretty big strike, right? Besides, all armor fits on it perfectly when we put it on too. As expected, flying in an unarmored striker is scary, isn't it? There's no helping it. Well, more armor wouldn't hurt, right? Even if you get cornered by some crazy strong aces, then you should be able to survive too. That sounds pretty convincing coming from you, huh? Saki added. Diarose was once cornered by Kaisai and her engine was almost got taken out by his photon saber. Without Zentis' stupidly thick armor, she would have been defeated right then and there. Well, armor aside, since the engine has increased output now, we strengthened the thrusters and weapons as well. A striker's main thruster uses the exhaust heat of the engine to propel forward. That's why if the engine is strengthened, the thrust capacity would also increase. We've managed to increase the thrust by 20%. We've also prepared some very powerful weapons, so unlike how some strikers can endure a hit from you before, you should be able to take them down with one shot now. I appreciate that. I was having a hard time because I don't have enough firepower in the last battle after all. Since the Norwegian Zeniths were so robust that they could still move no matter how many of his attacks hit, Kaisai actually struggled quite a bit. Head-mounted machine guns, wire guns. We didn't make any changes to those two. However, we did replace your normal photon sabers with the high-end ones. The pile bunker's body was also made to be sturdier and the stake was refurbished to increase the penetration power as well. So it's a general performance enhancement. What about the rifle? Since it seems that the output of the 8.5 MW rifle wasn't enough to penetrate the enemy's armor plate, I took a plunge and prepared a new weapon for you instead. Please take a look here. That one. It's from one of the 4 heavenly, Parfil. Was it? We took the twin Mega Blaster rifle from that heavy-duty Zenith and remodeled it into a single-mount version. It might be a little difficult to handle, but I guarantee its firepower. Since Kaisai is very accurate with his shot, there's no need for them to go out of their way to add the whole twin Mega Blaster, as it will only add deadweight instead. The chief made the right call to remodel it. However, Kaisai has a difficult expression on his face. How many shots can I make? It has 8 rounds in total. That's too few. I will bring the old rifle with me too when I sortie. It's too powerful, so it would be a waste to use that on the normal strikers. Having to deal with a large number of small fry is the pain of being an ace in an inferior army. The chief understood that, so she's scratching her head with a bitter expression. Well, there's no way around it. The payload capacity has also increased, so I think that we should be able to figure it out. Then that should be good enough, right? How long do you think it will take for you to finish it? The Norwegian army won't be taking their time forever, you know. If you can, I want it done as soon as possible. Diarose's demanding tone probably came from her old habit as a commander. On the other hand, the chief frowned. Well, it won't even take a week before we can finish up here. I also want to have a test flight before Nord makes a move too, so I will do my best to complete it. Well, don't push yourself, okay? Seeing the dark smile on the chief's face as she started walking to the Excalibur, Kaisai could only see her off with a cramped expression. So, 2-seater, crazy thick armor, improved sabers and pile bunker. New heavy-duty 8 shots Mega Blaster rifle. Why didn't they add Diarose's shotgun too, I wonder? CH-183. New power. At the military training ground on the outskirts of the capital, a striker with a rabbit-like antenna was hopping around in its mountainous terrain. Amazing. It's like I'm riding a wild horse. Inside its cockpit, Kaisai commented with a complicated expression as the chief said, "The remodeling of Excalibur was completed in less than a week, and now he's taken it out for a test flight." However, unlike Caliburn Revive, which was quite easy to handle, he can only describe the movement of Excalibur as violent. It's quite a difficult striker to pilot properly. Well, that's to be expected when it has 50% engine output, right? No choice but to get used to it. "No," said Diarose with a happy smile from the pilot seat behind Kaisai. To prevent her slave collar from accidentally detonating, this striker was remodeled to be a 2-seater. However, although a striker is a 12 meters tall war machine, It's not like its cockpit is that wide. Inevitably, the cockpit now felt even narrower because of the additional seat, and now Kaisai's head is located right in front of Diarose's crotch, a position where she can use her feet to stranglehold him whenever she feels like it. The power is amazing, but as I thought, the frame really can't keep up with the output. It makes me anxious since I can feel the whole thing creaking whenever I accelerate. Really? I don't feel it though. I haven't used its full power yet. If I accelerate to full speed, then we might lose our balance. We have to be careful. They reserved the whole training ground for today. Other than Kaisai and Diarose, only Nora and Tursis, whose strikers have finished being repaired, and Valentina, who's received a new striker, are with them today. They didn't have to make it this flashy though. Rather, I wish I could get something like that instead. Saying so, Kaisai turned his gaze to Valentina's new striker. Its design looked like a black Caliburn Revive, which he's familiar with. Its model name is Kulbrand. One could say that it's the new model that was improved upon Excalibur, a Kalantian Zenith that was destroyed when Kaisai first joined Kalantia in the war. Originally, it was intended for Kaisai, but with the Orthokratzer destroyed by Schleer, the army reluctantly gave it to Valentina to pilot. That one is just an improved Caliburn Revive, with a new high-end engine installed, right? Can't we just switch? You fool. You finally got your hand on a good striker, so you should just try and make full use of it. In my case, even if you give me a powerful striker, it would just be a waste on me though. After all, with his frail comparatively body, he will just be crushed by the G from the acceleration if he uses the striker's full power. He might even die from that. It's his opinion that a striker that can match his opponent's minimum performance and firepower is good enough for him. If that's the case, then this one will be handed to my foolish little sister, you know. With what we have planned for her, that would not be good, right? Diarose whispered into Kaisai's ear while using her hand to switch off the radio. As long as they turned that off, they should have no need to whisper. She probably did it because she wanted to. When her warm breath tickled his earlobe, Kaisai's eyes squinted a little. You are well, since they went out of their way to remodel it for me, I guess I will have to use it, huh? Recalling the tired expression on the chief and the other mechanics, he can't possibly tell them, I don't want it, now that they have pushed themselves that much for him. Exactly. Also, it's about time the warm-up is done, right? Let's try moving it like you would in a real battle next. If something goes wrong during a battle, then it will become a double suicide, you know, said Diarose in a loose tone while rubbing her cheek against his. With the narrow cockpit, she can sexually harass him as much as she wants, and he can't shake her off due to their physical difference. With a bitter expression, Kaisai raises the throttle output. A huge blue flame spewed out from the main thruster on the back. Due to the enormous thrust generated, Kaisai's body was strongly pressed back against his seat and he let out a small scream. Immediately after, Kaisai lowered the power. They said that they improved on the inertial control too, but as I thought, using full thrust is still too much for me. What? It's painful for you at this level? I'm impressed you managed to defeat all four heavenlies. Her words may have sounded like a ridicule, but Diarose was truly impressed with his feat. After all, defeating a group of such powerful foes with an inferior body and striker from the front is not something that's in the realm of humans. The G was even stronger than this on Zentis. While Kaisai unintentionally screamed at the strong G, Diarose seems completely oblivious to it. Realizing that, Kaisai asked, well, yeah, if I accelerate at full power, then it would be painful even for me. Even though they put Zentis engine in this thing, it seems that the overall performance has deteriorated. In the end, this striker is a mix between two different strikers. It's impossible for this striker to surpass the original Zentis in terms of performance. Well, regardless of the performance, its pilot is still the best there is. No matter who we have to face, we will be able to figure it out. I know that better than anyone else, Diarose stated affectionately. TLN, so he can't fly at full speed with it. CH 184. Getting accustomed. What happens when the top ace, who's already too overpowered with his skill alone, gets his hands on a gun that can take out his opponent in one shot? The answer is an overwhelmingly one-sided battle. To think we got shot down 10 times straight. Nora moaned with an anguished expression inside the cockpit of Zarova. A few dozens of minutes have passed since their mock battle with the Excalibur, in a 3-against-1 fight. They decided on that as if it was a matter of course, and the result ended up with the complete defeat on the side of the 3 former Norwegian pilots. Lady Eleanor's firepower always feels so reliable when we have it on our side, but it's truly terrifying when you are on the receiving end. To think that we can't even get close. Excalibur is now equipped with the remodeled Mega Blaster rifle appropriated from their Parfil, Eleanor aka their Heavenly Thunder's personal striker. Boasting its 12 MW output, this large-sized blaster rifle has enough firepower to penetrate even the armor of the other 4 Heavenly personal strikers with a single blow. Rather, I'm surprised that my love had been fighting us with this kind of low-end machine. It practically doesn't have any power, is slow reacting, and doesn't have any good points besides its ease of handling. Moreover, this one is already better than the prototype model he used. Should I start laughing now? That's cruel. It was a good striker, you know. Caliburn revive. I mean, Valentina is currently piloting their Kulbrand, which is effectively their Caliburn revive, younger twin brother. She seems to be quite dissatisfied with it. That's a given, since if she compared it to her old striker, the performance is just too poor. Still, there's no helping it, since the amount of money invested in the development between the two is literally incomparable. She just can't admit that the reason she's been fighting so well so far is because of the performance of her machine. Since your striker has become poorer now, you will have to put in more effort to fight alongside us, proud 4 Heavenly. After betraying Nord, I don't think the 4 Heavenly have any pride that's worth boasting about though. Diarose carefully added that agitating comment, but Nora ignored her and proceeded to restart her striker, which has ceased to function by the training AI. Tursis also does the same. At least we have to get a blow in. Lady Nora, I leave the support to you. With powerful acceleration, Tursis immediately drove her, Van Wolf, close to Kaisai. After the repair, the strikers of the 4 Heavenly did not lose any of their performance, and her speed is as fast as she was before. Hey, a free score is flying our way again, you know. It's only a training exercise, okay? While bitterly smiling at Diarose's carefree words, Kaisai quickly turned the muzzle of his Mega Blaster rifle toward the approaching Van Wolf. However, while he was aiming, a thick ray from Nora's blaster magnum flew at him. We won't fall to the same thing over and over again. Desayu. Kukaku, hearing a loser howling is always pleasant. Now, master, shoot them down. Why are you like this? While retorting to Diarose, Kaisai was calm. Unsheathing the photon saber, which was relocated from the slot on the chest area to the shoulder, he swings the green blade and deflects the beam toward Van Wolf. That's nothing. However, as though she's already read that, Tursis also pulled out her photon saber using their Van Wolf's left hand and parried the beam away. Nice one. Kaisai smiled ferociously as he glanced at the deflected beam, which flew away in a different direction. It seems that parrying a beam is no longer an ability exclusive to him. I'm also growing after all, Tursis proudly shouted as she swung her longsword down on Excalibur. Kaisai doesn't avoid it but instead receives it with his photon saber. The longsword's magnetic field and the saber made of concentrated energy repelled each other, sending sparks flying. Being subjected to such a strong charge, Excalibur activated its soul anchors to withstand the impact. My power-up is not just for show either. Excalibur was pushed back a little, but it managed to endure the charge. If it was before, he would have been blown away with Caliburn revive. It's worth replacing the engine and remodeling the high-end Zenith of Nord to lower its performance for his use. The high performance is not bad, right? Both for your body and my own safety. It would be a problem if we can't get the best striker possible. Maybe. While they were having that exchange, Van Wolf uses its left hand to swing the photon saber at him. Seeing that, Kaisai immediately pulled the trigger on his control stick. Paint bullets rained on the saber's grip and the AI judged that it was disabled. I won't let you dual-wield your way to victory, you know. I want a machine gun too. Norwegian strikers do not have head-mounted machine guns. Tursis was gritting her teeth at that fact when Valentina's voice suddenly rang out. Step back. From the side, Kulbrand rushed in with a long lance. Realizing that Valentina is trying to charge Kaisai with the opening she made, Tursis retreats. You will let us have this one, my love. Naive. With a grin, Kaisai avoided the Kulbrand's charge. He then loses his photon saber and grabs the arm of Kulbrand, using its momentum to throw it at Van Wolf. Wow! The two strikers were blown away by the impact with a loud noise. After that, Kaisai mercilessly shot his Mega Blaster rifle. Almost at the same moment Turcis's Van Wolf was hit. An empty particle cartridge was ejected and the next round was already loaded. The second round was then shot at Valentina's Kulbrand. When it was about to stand up, with one shot each, the two strikers were disabled. Even if it's just me. Nora stayed calm despite her earlier attitude. While using her magnums to suppress Excalibur's movement, she kicked off the ground and blew her thruster. You might be the better shot. But you can't move well with a weapon that size, right? In the end, the Mega Blaster rifle is a fairly large weapon. That's why its wielder should have poor maneuverability in close quarters. Her plan is to close in and take him down, given that she's a close-quarter specialist. HMPH. While defending himself from the barrage of beams with his saber, Kaisai stored the Mega Blaster rifle back on the hard point on the back. He then wields the photon saber using both hands and plunges toward Zareva. Did you get influenced by Saki-san or something? It's not like I hate sword fights in the first place, you know. But I don't have to go along either. The acceleration power of Excalibur was more than Nora expected. He was fighting with a weapon that he should be trying to keep her at a distance, but he was the one who approached her himself. Nora somehow managed to intercept his saber with the bayonet on her magnum, but her magnum was pushed back by sheer force. Nora was trying to withdraw, but it was too late. With a roaring sound, the pile bunker was plunged toward Zareva's abdomen, and the AI immediately notified her that her striker is now disabled. Damn it. In the end, the 11th mock battle also ended in their defeat. With a groan of regret, Nora let go of her control stick. CH 185. Badgering. I'm drenched. After the exercise, Kaisai returned to his room and stretched. His jet black hair was moist and wet as though he'd just left a shower. You are still. That's my first time in a striker in a while. Due to the long vacation, he hasn't touched a striker for quite some time. The vacation was nice, but he still felt the most joy being in a striker. However, once he marries Schleer and the others, he will have less chance to climb inside the cockpit. Thinking so, he felt a little down. Kaisai was looking up at the ceiling in silence, but suddenly, a knock came from the door. He hurriedly heads to the door and finds that he's got visitors. On the display at the door were Nora and Turcis. Coming, aside from Turcis, who stayed on board there, radiant, Nora should have been on Valentina's ship, there, Prussia. While doubting what they are doing together, Kaisai opens the door. Oh, you are in after all. Without any further words, Nora nonchalantly entered the room. With a bitter smile, Turcis gives him a bow. My apology for the sudden visit, my lord. I'm free so I don't mind, but what do you want? Well, about that. Turcis shakes her head sideways with a troubled expression. Lady Nora told me that she has a business with you, so I simply accompany her. It's Lady Nora, so I cannot be sure if she will try something if she's alone with you after all. I think she wouldn't try anything too weird though. He has a lot of skinship with Nora, but rarely does she push him down against his will. With a small smile, Kaisai urged Turcis to sit down. Well, it's fine. Anyway, make yourself at home. Turcis quietly nodded and sat down. This time Kaisai's eyes turned toward Nora. He. Nora, who received his gaze straight on, made a weird laugh. In response, cold sweat dripped down on his forehead. Come on, we are already engaged, aren't we? Well, yeah, although they still haven't submitted the documents yet. The two have already signed both of their names on the paper. But why is she bringing that up now? Kais doubted. But you see, I just realized that I've always been the one who's done the kissing, but you've never kissed me before. That's why I came to get a kiss, Desu. Is that right? Certainly, he has been kissed by Nora several times, but he has never initiated one before. Vols usually kiss their lover on the forehead, so they should take turns kissing each other's forehead. Lady Nora, you can't bother my lord for such a silly reason. It's not silly, Desu. Skinship is important. Desu. If your bodies are too far apart, then even the hearts might be distant too, Desu. Nora protested. She then glares at Kaisai. You have been doing this and that with the princess, the slave, and even the samurai, right? Since I can't do that, I should be able to get at least a kiss, Desu. We haven't done it since we returned to the ship though. It would be a big deal if the common soldiers knew, so they planned to announce the marriage after the war ended. Of course, They won't risk having sex on board the ship either. Even if the room is private, soldiers do come to his room to make a bed for him after all. That being said, he also understands where Nora came from. Besides, a forehead kiss is not that much of a hurdle for him. It doesn't feel right for him to do anything more since Nora is only 14 after all. I got it. I got it. You don't have to make that kind of face. Letting out a small sigh at Nora's inflated cheeks, Kaisai gently scooped her red-tinted grey bangs up. He then gently puts his lips on her white forehead. On the receiving end, Nora's expression loosened and she sighed a little. Like this? After about 10 seconds, Kaisai parted his lips from Nora's forehead. On the other hand, Nora silently urged him to crouch down. Since it's clear what she wants, Kaisai obediently complies. Nora placed her lips on Kaisai's forehead and left it there for more than 30 seconds. After she finally let go, Nora tapped Kaisai on his shoulders. Meanwhile, Tursis, who has been watching them, has a slightly moody expression on her face. This is it, Desu. Let's do this every day, Desu. Every day, Desu. Nora was excited, but she also glanced toward Tursis at the same time. It doesn't look like she's jealous and she's only watching over them with interest. It appears that a kiss between fiancés doesn't count as trying something for her, so she doesn't step in. That's right. I'm fine with us doing the Vult style, but since Kaisai-san is a Terran, she should be doing it Terran style too, Desu. I heard from Saki-san, Desu. Terrans usually kiss each other mouth to mouth, right? It will be fine as long as I don't let the saliva slip. Let's do it, Desu. Seriously. I mean, you have been talking about that kind of stuff with Saki-ha. A kiss between a 19-year-old and a 14-year-old, from Kaisai's POF, that's already a crime. However, since this is a Vult country, this much difference in age is not a problem. While being looked at with Nora's sparkling and expectant gaze, Kaisai's mouth formed into a single line. After a moment of hesitation, he put both hands on Nora's cheeks and gently kissed her lips. Greatly excited, Nora also holds Kaisai's face with her hands and her rough breath hits Kaisai's face. With this, he can't let go on his own. Nora's youthful face was so close that their noses could touch, so even Kaisai's heart started to race too. With the lips stuck together, Nora glanced at Tursis with a slightly annoyed look. If Tursis is not here, then she might have just stuck her tongue in. Since that would be a problem, Kaisai on the other hand was quite relieved at Tursis's presence. Amazing. That was amazing. After more than 3 minutes, Nora finally released Kaisai, and with her face bright red, Nora licks her lips. It's like a rehearsal for the real deal, so it's super lewd. Desu. Lewd. One more time. Let's do it one more time. It seems that she was overjoyed that she abandoned the use of her strange suffix. Since she's that happy about it and he also doesn't feel bad, Kaisai complied and kissed her lips again. Nora's expression has already become loose, but she realized that Tursis was calmly watching them from the side. As expected, it's embarrassing. This time, Nora's cheeks reddened for a different reason, but suddenly an idea came to her. That's right. Since Tursis-san will also marry Kaisai-san, so Tursis-san should do it too. I would feel bad if I get to do it alone, Desu. Nora's smile seems to hide something nasty contrary to her words. Her plan is to let Tursis get the taste of the same stimulation she received and let her show her embarrassing side too. Ch 186. The Night's Awakening. Hearing Nora basically says that she should kiss Kaisai too, Tursis's expression turned into a confused one. That couldn't be helped since she was suddenly asked to join in when she had been silently watching the two of them kiss. It would rather be difficult for her to not be surprised at all. Why, said Tursis as she involuntarily got up from her chair. She then glanced at Kaisai. I mean, of course, I do not hate the idea of kissing my lord. Rather, it would only trouble my lord to kiss someone like me. No, I'd never think that way. Kaisai himself doesn't dislike Tursis either, so he shook his head to her question and glanced at Nora. Still, why did you suggest that a kiss should be something you do when both sides want to, right? Well, Tursis-san wants to have a child with Kaisai-san, right? Tursis affirmed with not a hint of shyness. Instead, it was Kaisai who looked away. Although he already has experiences with women, he still can't handle this kind of talk head-on. Do you think that a woman who can't even kiss well can make a child? I see. You are convinced by that? Kaisai thought that logic was quite ridiculous, but Tursis clapped her hands together and agreed, so his face cramped up a little. A forehead kiss doesn't have anything to do with child making, but a kiss on the lips is important. Desu, it's your chance to practice now. Desu, Fuma. That does sound reasonable. It does? Kaisai involuntarily retorted, but Tursis turned toward him without minding that. Shyness and shame were absent from her expression. She once said that she doesn't know what kind of feeling love is before, and it doesn't seem like it was an exaggeration. Well, I don't know how it will go until I try. If it's fine with my lord, then please allow me to try it at least once. It's not like you will do any harm, so just do it. Desu. Perhaps disliking how calm Tursis is, Nora added with a sullen expression. After thinking about it for a moment, Kaisai nods. After all, he was the one who offered her the marriage. It would be rude to her if he refuses here. However, he does feel a little self-loath at how he could come to that decision so quickly now. Well then, please excuse me. Saying so, Tursis walked up to Kaisai and slightly crouched down. She's so tall that they wouldn't be able to kiss him unless she did this. Since Kaisai-san has way more experience when it comes to kissing, you should be the one to take the lead this time. Can you not put it like I'm okay with kissing anyone? How many women have Kaisai-san kissed so far though? 5. He thought that this kind of question should be about the number of times he has done it, but it was about the number of women he has done it with instead. Nonetheless, he answered truthfully. Is that not plenty enough? Tursis-san has never kissed anyone before, right? When Nora asked so with a grin, Tursis nodded with a difficult expression. I've never been interested in men before, so I have never even held hands with any except my father. See? With an equally difficult expression, Kaisai averted his eyes. Well, the person with more experience should take the lead in this kind of thing. Desu, if you go at it too strong, then you would just smack each other with your teeth after all. Fuma. Understood. Very well. Please take care of me, my lord. You can't close your eyes either, you know. You have to see how it's done properly after all. I know. Saying so, Tursis presented her face. With no other choice, Kaisai placed his lips on hers. The soft sensation which he has already grown accustomed to spread on his lips. On the other hand, Tursis, whose eyes were wide open, turned redder and redder. Then, Kaisai can feel a rough breath on his face. Hayu. In a terrible panic, Tursis withdrew back. While holding her cheeks, which had become red like a ripped apple, she swallowed down her saliva. Meanwhile, hearing the clear sound of her gulping down, Nora's grin widened. What's wrong, Tursis-san? Was it something that their heavenly blade herself has to back down from? No, I didn't. It's just, my heart was pounding. Then you don't have a problem doing it again, Desu? Nora cruelly said that while staring straight into Tursis's eyes. Tursis took a step back, but when she saw the confused look on Kaisai's face, she stopped herself. Probably thinking that backing away would be rude to him, she hastily places her hands on his shoulders. My apology. Please continue. Hearing that, Kaisai kissed her again. This time he's treating her like a fragile object. However, unlike earlier, Tursis's eyes were shut tight. The sound of her heart loudly beating was even audible to him. He can feel Tursis's body getting hotter through his lips. She's clearly lost her calm. For a while, their lips lay atop each other's, but before long, Tursis's hips gave out. Saliva dripped from the edge of her lips and she had to wipe it in a hurry while repeatedly swallowing the rest down her throat. Perhaps her shame has reached its peak. Tursis shot up like a spring-loaded toy and held her bright red face with both hands. Just like that, she tottered off and leapt out of the room. Ha. That's it. That's what I wanted to see, Desu. Nora was overjoyed at the sight and laughed out loud while pointing at the door where Tursis just left through. What just happened? Drenched in a cold sweat, Kaisai asked. Even if it's normal to be embarrassed, Tursis's reaction was that unusual. You saw how Tursis-san kept swallowing down her saliva, right? Yeah. We are a race that produces a lot of saliva when we are aroused, Desu. Of course, it's to use it on the male partner. In other words, Tursis-san felt so aroused earlier that she couldn't endure it, Desu. Nora waves her hand with a proud smile. That person has never taken any interest in men, Desu. That just now might be her so-called sexual awakening, you know? Sexually awakened by a kiss? avowed. Nora continued to laugh as Kaisai was weirded out a little. She then turns her gaze to the door again. Now then, with the stiff out of the way, we can get to the main subject now, Desu. That wasn't the main subject? Well, it's one of the reasons I'm here, Desu. Actually, I came here because I have something important to talk with you about, Desu. Seeing Nora's expression turned serious, Kaisai sullenly shook his head. To be honest, his mind was already quite damaged from the kissing incident alone. It would be nice if he can avoid any more troublesome things. What is it? It's possible that we might have to add another wife for Kaisai-san, Desu. Hearing that, Kaisai's frown extremely deepened. TLN, I support this route. Gabmo, CH 187, scheme. What are you talking about? Terribly confused, Kaisai asked back. This time even Nora looked back at him with a little sympathy. About that. When Nora was about to explain, suddenly, the door was violently knocked on. The two looked at each other. When Nora gives him a nod, Kaisai hurries toward the door and checks the monitor. It seems that the one who was banging on his door was Dairo's, so he immediately unlocked and opened it. Tursis just ran past me. Her face was bright red. What happened? That was her immediate question when the door was opened. Her well-shaped brows are squinted together. It seems that she saw the result of what happened earlier, so Kaisai was a little scared to tell her. Well, that was, good timing. Now we have an evil schemes expert. Please join us, Dairo's-san, said Nora, who appeared from behind Kaisai. It was clear from Dairo's expression that she is questioning him why Nora's here, but she didn't press it and entered the room after a small sigh. I have my own thing that I need to talk with Master about too though. Well, fine. What do you want? Well, about that. Nora said that she might have to add another bride to the list. Huh? Dairo's was immediately confused by that as well. She then stares at Nora's face and frowns when she realized that she's not joking. A bride? Huh? A bride? Just who on earth are you talking about? If we increase the number even more, it will put more burden on Master, and the time we can spend alone with him will decrease. You know, for the record, I'm against it. Of course, I understand that too. Still, I think it's a price that we need to pay, Desu. Nora sighed with a difficult expression. It's Elena, Desu. She's staying here as a pair right now, right? I want Kaisai-san to convince her to be our ally, Desu. Elena? The one who piloted that heavy-duty Zenith? That should be one of the four heavenly Thunder, who stayed with Dairo's until the end and didn't switch to Kalanchia's side. In the first place, since she's already freed from her duty to Dairo's, it's strange that she still chooses to resist though. Yes, that's her. She's a good pilot and her parents' house is loaded, Desu. She's kind of a dum-dum though. But if we have her as our ally, then I'm sure that she will be a great help, Desu. I see. I get what you are saying now. Dairo's nodded. Nora is right. The current Kalanchian army is still terribly lacking. It would be a huge benefit for them if they can get a pilot of Elena's caliber and the power of her house on their side. But would she really turn on Nord that easily? She might be stupid, but she's a serious person at her roots, you know. It would be hard to plot a scheme that can rope her in. That's where this man's excessive sex appeal comes in, Desu. If we have him seduce her and make her try to lay her hand on him, then I can rush in and say, hey, what are you doing to my man? Then I think someone who has such a strong sense of responsibility like her would yield whatever demand we make, Desu. Isn't that just a honey trap? Kaisai involuntarily retorted. After all, that it was quite an outrageous scheme she's suggesting. Your plan is too sloppy. Even if everything goes well, we would only be able to get Elena's help. A plan like that won't make her house budge, said Dairo's while putting her index finger on her cheek. However, contrary to her dismissive words, it seems that she's pondering on something. But the main idea behind the plan isn't too bad. How can we convince her house though? As expected from our own evil scheme expert, Soon. Even Nora didn't think that her plan would work, so she had a nasty smile on her face when she successfully got Dairo's on board. Somehow, I got a bad feeling about this. He fell victim to her scheme before, so Kaisai naturally frowned at the development. Of course, he understands that the Kalanchian army is not in a very good spot, so he also agreed that they need to increase their allies though. For the time being, I think I have a rough plan. Master. Aslo, Nora, come with me. We are bringing this to Schleer. Is that okay? I mean, Schleer seems like she's very busy, right? Schleer did not show up at the test flight earlier. She was stuck with her work which accumulated during their long vacation. If they suddenly go to her like this, she probably won't have time for them. It's fine. I came here to call Master on her behalf in the first place after all. Ah, I see. If that's the case, then it should be fine. Kaisai thought so, but he couldn't shake this strange premonition he has. What does Schleer want with him? She should be very busy, so perhaps she wanted to talk to him during her break. It would be great if that's all she wants though. TLN, we have a honey trap in the progress next week, I think. CH 188, an aristocrat's marriage. 1. I see. Changing the location, they are now at the Fleet Command Center on board there, Radiant. The room, which has already turned into Schleer's office, is filled with documents and empty cans of energy drinks. After hearing Nora's plan, Schleer, who has dark circles formed under her eyes, nodded. Eleanor-san's house. That's the Fafletter house, correct? If my memory serves me right, that's quite a powerful house, isn't it? Yeah. It only holds the rank of Countess, but they have a lot of rare minerals in their territory, so they are very powerful in terms of financial power. Thanks to that, they are growing in power in Nord despite being a recently found house. So to put it the other way, they are an upstart, aren't they? Said Solana, Schleer's staff officer. The timing is great. Their head retainer will be visiting us to negotiate the release of the POW. This would be our best chance to draw them in as our ally. A head retainer is the highest position given to a servant of a noble house. This may not be as good as the family head visiting them herself, but a head retainer still holds a lot of authority in the house. As a negotiation partner, the head retainer would probably be good enough. But unlike Tursis-san, Eleanor-san is not the family head. Will it be so easy to negotiate with them? No. In the first place, will Eleanor-san really be willing to betray her country? Of course. Schleer had already tried negotiating with her to see if she was willing to join Kalantia, but Eleanor stubbornly turned her down. She claimed that she can't just betray her country. I have a plan for that. So you have one. Schleer has already got a taste of what Dirose's schemes entail, so she was drawn back a little. For the time being, I can do something about her house as long as we have Eleanor with us. After that, you can leave the negotiation with her house to me. I will serve them up on a silver platter for you. Why are you so gung-ho about this? Solana cast a suspicious gaze on Dirose. Naturally, it's obvious for her to doubt the former enemy general who is suddenly so willing to cooperate. The normal line of thinking would be that she's pretending to side with them while waiting for a chance of betrayal. I've already shared a bath and even slept on the same futon as your princess, you know. Besides, if I act suspiciously, then you can detonate this collar at any time, right? You can even attach someone to monitor me, so just trust me on this. Same futon? Said Solana as she looked alternately between Schleer and Dirose with the eyes that say, you two have that kind of relationship? In reply, Schleer shook her head sideways with her face bright red. Well, leaving that aside, even if we can do something about the negotiation with the Fafletters, what are we going to do with Eleanor-san? According to what I heard about her, she seems to be pretty stubborn though. About that. With an apologetic look, Dirose glanced at Kaisai. Realizing that his turn has arrived, Kaisai shakes his head. I'm thinking of arranging a marriage interview with her and Master. If Master and Eleanor get married, she would consequently become Schleer's sister-in-law. That way we should be able to bar the Fafletters from entering the war. In-law? Solana looked at Schleer with a terribly shocked expression. Her expression says, you traitor. No way, your highness. He agreed to marry you? Why, yes, Schleer replied with a blush. What, you still haven't told her yet? Ignoring Dirose, who seemed to be baffled by that, Solana gazes imploringly at Kaisai. It's not her highness's usual delusion. Yes. We plan to submit the document after the war is over. I was too late. Solana crouched down and held her head. Seeing her like that, Nora makes a nasty smile. I'm also engaged to him. Desu. Man, what a shame, isn't it? It's like I just took an idol from an otaku. Even the little brat from Nord. Apparently, Solana was aiming for Kaisai as well. Realizing that, Dirose tries to comfort Solana, who's now rolling on the floor. I mean, we still haven't submitted it yet. Since you're such a loyal vassal, we should be able to add your name to the paper. While mumbling something incomprehensible to herself, Solana shakily stands up. She then stares intensely at Schleer. That's a good plan for us to forge a tie with the Fafletter house, but if that's the case, won't Prince Al be better suited for this? It is not common to have a marriage be shared by that many houses. For a marriage that ties two houses together, it is customary that the partner is single. Fortunately, Schleer's younger brother is still unmarried. You have a prince. That's good. If that's the case, then we can leave this to him. Diarose was reluctant about adding more brides to Kaisai from the start. Since there are already so many, adding more would not be good for him. That's why Diarose's expression immediately brightened. However, Schleer shook her head sideways. No, that is impossible. It's still unofficial, but how is in a marriage talk with our neighboring country at the moment. Schleer's expression was also complicated. On the personal level, she is also against Kaisai having more wives, but on the other hand, she's also reluctant to leave her precious younger brother to a noble from an enemy country. That being said, she can't be immature here, so she decided to state her thoughts as someone in charge. The country in question has been providing us with a lot of funds and supplies for this war. Even if it's still unofficial, we can't be the one to back out now. With her hope shattered, Diarose let out a deep long sigh. Ch 189. An aristocrat's marriage too. Well, if we go with the prince, then it will become a political marriage. Desayo? For this to work, we need to entrap Eleanor-san, right? As though to shake off the awkward atmosphere, Nora casually raised her point. In the first place, this plan will not work unless Eleanor herself is willing to switch sides. To that end, offering Prince Ao to her in a political marriage wouldn't be enough. Besides, it would be bad to have the prince be a part of such a scheme, isn't it? On that point, I think Kaisai-san is more suitable. Desu. He already has a track record of seducing Norwegian soldiers to this side after all. It's true, but can you not put it like that? For Kaisai personally, he did not go out of his way to seduce anyone at all. It's already turned out like that when he noticed it. Thinking I've done nothing wrong at all, Kaisai lightly glared at Nora. Rather, is our situation so bad that we must have this Eleanor person on our side? If we are not that desperate, then I don't want to enact such a dirty scheme though. Seducing an enemy to switch sides really can be categorized as a dirty scheme. Moreover, the fact that he's going to be the centerpiece of this plan is probably making Kaisai feels even more conflicted. Still, Schleer lowers her head to him with an extremely apologetic look. If our intelligence department is correct, then it seems that Nord is mobilizing everything they've got. No matter how much Kaisai-san can accomplish, it would be meaningless if our main force is being destroyed in the meantime. You can say that the force they mobilize this time will warrant an unconditional surrender under a normal circumstance. That much. Hearing how despairingly large the gap between the two forces is, Kaisai's face stiffened. It's clear that the situation is much more serious than he expected, since it came from Schleer, who had fought so far without giving up. It's still a secret, but fortunately we have full support from Tursis-san's house, the Melemayam. We also have a lot of strategies in place, but Schleer glanced at Diarose, who lightly smiled and shrugged. But unless we use everything we have, there's no chance of victory. It's difficult for me to say this as well, but I'd like Kaisai-san to cooperate with us on this. Schleer's expression was filled with bitterness and powerlessness. In the end, Kaisai could only groan and let out a small sigh before replying. All right, I got it. Anything for victory, right? I'm really sorry. I will definitely repay you in full after the war. Schleer strongly stated so. Her eyes contain a certain sense of her determination. Seeing that, Diarose lightly smiles at her. All right. Then let us arrange a meeting with Eleanor as soon as possible. Another one with the retainer from Fafletter too. Do you have a plan? Nora, you get along with Eleanor, right? Hearing that, Nora's face cramped up a little. We are not friends, Desayu. She just came and talked to me on her own. She even sent me a gift sometimes. Seriously, I don't really get that person, Desu. I don't care how you feel about her. From what I saw, I think that you are something like a little sister to Eleanor. We are going to use that. Seriously, you really are an expert at all things evil, pretty soon. Nora was taken aback, but she knows that Diarose is the best at this kind of evil scheme, so she simply shrugged and didn't say anything more. Eleanor was placed under house arrest at a hotel in the capital at the moment. If we are going to see her, then we should be able to do it as soon as tomorrow, said Solana as she checked the information on her terminal. Eleanor is currently being treated as a power of the Kalanchian army. However, since she's a high-ranking aristocrat, they couldn't just throw her in with the common POWs. As a result, they came to a compromise and confined her in a room at a luxury hotel in the capital. Then let's arrange a meeting with Eleanor in the morning and the Fafletta in the afternoon. Also, Schleer, I want you to come with us too if possible. Impossible. Her Highness absolutely cannot leave. Instead of Schleer, it was Solana who shouted so. The person herself looked bitter, as though she has just chewed on a mouthful of worms. It seems that she's tired of working herself to the bone from dusk till dawn as well. If you need a royalty to go with you to the negotiation, then Her Highness Frey should be returning from abroad today. You should be fine with Her Highness Frey. No, Her Highness Frey. You mean Schleer's older sister? Kaisai has met Frey before. She's a bright woman who looks exactly like Schleer. She's currently in charge of managing the Kalanchian army's supply. That's correct. When it comes to negotiation, I believe that Her Highness Frey would be more reliable than Her Highness Schleer here. Aren't you a little too harsh on your superior? Said Schleer in protest as she lowered her head. I don't really want to trouble her with this when she's just come back from a diplomatic trip, but there's no way around it. Very well, then the attendees from our side will be Master, me, and Nora. I will leave the meeting arrangement to you. Understood. I will leave the negotiation to you, said Schleer with her head still down. She doubts if she should really rely this much on a former enemy general, but Diarose is the most capable strategist they have right now, so she can't imagine anyone else taking care of it. It would be the end of Kalanchia if she did betray them, but Schleer decided to trust her. Oh no, look at the time. When she raised her face up and glanced at the clock, Schleer's face stiffened. Let's leave it at this for now. Kaisai-san, Diarose-san, please prepare to move. The speedboat should already be waiting for you. What are you talking about? Naturally, Kaisai was troubled when he was suddenly told that a boat is here to pick him up, so he looked at Diarose with a frown. The fact that she visited his room earlier must have been related to this. You still haven't told him? I didn't have time to, Diarose replied to Schleer, who panicked and stood up from her chair. In return, Schleer holds her head in sighs. There's no helping it. We don't have time, so please give him the explanation on the boat. No way around it then. Diarose reluctantly nodded. What? Where are you taking me? Schleer's eyes turned incredibly sympathetic as she looked at the upset Kaisai. Feeling a very bad premonition, a chill ran down Kaisai's spine. Well, I've to apologize in advance, but this is essential to our victory. Please forgive me. What are you talking about? To her extremely apologetic look, Kaisai couldn't help but want to cry. TLN, now entering the Obai land. CH 190. So, what do you want me to do? Asked Kaisai in the cabin of a small boat. The boat is now sailing far away from the port where the Radiant is anchored. The only one inside the cabin was Kaisai and Diarose. Well, it's a little hard to say. You see? Diarose averted her eyes away with a terribly nervous expression. A bead of cold sweat appeared on her face and her hands were fidgeting. Well, let's call it a video shoot. What kind of video? That short question halted Diarose's hands, and after 30 seconds of silence, she finally opens her mouth. In avenue, like audio visuals? Adult video. As expected, he freaked out. He jumped up from his seat and shouted as loud as he could. Even though she already expected this reaction, Diarose's expression distorted. To be precise, it's a video of me screaming in delight while Master hitting me with a whip. Kaisai screamed the same word. It doesn't mean that he's reluctant to hit her with a whip. Since he knows that it's her fetish, he wouldn't refuse that kind of play either. However, he doesn't like the idea of that being filmed and the fact that it's clear that the footage will be used for military purposes later. Why would Schleer want the military involved in their private life? To send it to the Nord Army. Sending it to them? That kind of thing? Diarose seems a little happy for some reason and started fidgeting with her index fingers. In short, it's a demoralizing strategy by showing them the video of the person who they believe to be their next empress doing an face while doing a peace sign after being trained by a male mercenary. I'm having a headache. Kaisai sits back down with a difficult expression. Who and how did they come up with this crazy strategy? Moreover, it's simply outrageous knowing that it has got Schlier's approval. Well, I'm supposed to be the next empress, right? If the soldiers saw footage of me being miserably trained by some common mercenary who's not even an aristocrat, they would say, who the hell appointed this kind of fool to be our next empress? Right. They probably would. I would too if I were in their position. I mean, I'm thinking the same thing right now. Taking that abuse, Diarose trembled. That's right, and the one who appointed me to that position was my mother. The empress. They will be seeing a commoner man roughed up me, the supposed empress-to-be. Fufu. Just thinking how the other princesses and the aristocrats will see me afterward is so exciting. I understand the basics of it. Only the basics, that is. World society usually centers around a strong authoritarian figure. Conversely, if the authority of that figure is lost, their subordinates will start to revolt. That's the goal of this strategy. Using the communication cruiser the Kalanchans requisitioned, we can hijack the Norwegian army data link system during battle. Then we send the video to every ship and forcibly make it play on loops. It will be during the battle, you know. Imagine the chaos that it will break out. No one would be able to focus on the battle with that. I see. He can't help but think that this strategy aligned too much with Diarose's fetish, but it certainly will be effective. However, in return, both his and Diarose's embarrassing figure will be on full display in front of everyone. Moreover, if I'm seen like this by that many people, then it will be the complete destruction of my social life. No one would ever accept me besides Master Fu. What a wonderful strategy. Oops. With her saliva dripping from her mouth unconsciously, Diarose hurriedly wiped it while her face was bright red. To win this war, this strategy is absolutely necessary. Master also said, anything for victory. Right. Please go along with this. I did say that. Damn it. It's too embarrassing for him to take his own words back so soon after he said them. However, this is still too much, so Kaisai is now holding his head. Damn it. Damn it. If we still lose with this, then I will haunt you your entire life, you know. I've always believed that you would agree, Master. Diarose embraces Kaisai with a big smile. She also deliberately adjusted her position so that her plump breast would be in his face. After all, she's already confirmed that this is effective during their night together at the resort. Losing his will to scold her more, Kaisai struggled out of her embrace and shook his head while cursing his own simplicity. He then clears his throat and pretends to be calm. But we can do that kind of shoot anywhere, right? Where are we going in the first place? To the Odevansen, my former ship. That ship, it was taken out on an exercise, right? The Norwegian gigantic battleship, Odevansen, was requisitioned by the Kalanchian army. A crew was already assigned to it, and it was taken out for military exercise so that they can be combat ready as soon as possible. That's right. If we are going to do play, then the interrogation room there is the best suited for that. Since we are going to do this, let's shoot something exciting together. That place, It was in this very interrogation room on there, Odevansen, that Kaisai almost got assaulted by Diarose. At the time, Valentina managed to bail him out, but he never thought a day would come where he would do the same thing, only in the opposite position. By the way, our cameraman is going to be my foolish younger sister, you know. She's a relative after all. Even if the video is going to be seen by everyone, I don't want strangers to watch us in person, you see. Is that so? Replied Kaisai with an incredibly sullen look. Since he's already come this far, there's no point trying to get out of this anymore. After all, no matter who the cameraman will be, he would end up doing the same thing anyway. This call for some censorship for the next 2 chapters, I think. Ch 191. The shoot. Hi, my love. Valentina was messing with the high-performance camera in her hand with a sigh. The moment he arrived at the interrogation room, he was greeted by Valentina, who had an incredibly complicated expression on her face. It was a mix of irritation, sadness, and for some reason, expectation. This must be a lot for you. My apology. It's necessary, right? There's no way around it. Kaisai shrugs and looks around the interrogation room. Various torture devices are being illuminated under the dim light, giving off a strange sense of intimidation. He didn't really pay it that much attention when he was here before, but now that he can afford to take his time to look around, it's a pretty unpleasant room. That woman aside, we won't show your face in the video. With some editing, we can put some mosaics over your face so you can rest assured, my love. It leaves me with a bad taste when I can hide my face while Diarose has to show it though. You don't have to associate yourself with Diarose's social suicide, my love. You don't have to worry about anything at all. Diarose, whose little sister no longer calls her with any honorifics, smiled slightly at her and clapped her hands. Be done with the tedious talk, let's get started. We don't have much time. Since they can't be seen doing this, they've ordered the crew to stay away from the interrogation room, but that is also getting in the way of their exercise, so they need to finish the shoot as soon as possible. I know. My love, have you read the script? Well, yeah, I read it on the boat, but I'm not confident I remember it. It doesn't matter, you can ad-lib. We don't need to mind the quality because our only aim is to put the Empress and Diarose's authority into question after all. Since we are doing this, don't you want to make it the best one possible, dear sister? With a grin, Diarose let the military coat she was wearing slide off her body. Underneath, she's wearing an obscene bondage outfit. Since she's a tall, well-endowed woman, it was quite a poison to Kaisai's eyes. That outfit, where did you get it? However, from the perspective of someone of the same sex, Valentina seemed to be taken aback by her sister's appearance. Her face was filled with disgust when she squeezed out that question. It's mine though. I have it for some time now. I won't ask you anything ever again. Valentina shakes her head sideways in despair. On the other hand, Diarose walked to a device in the room with a joyful expression. It's a bed-type restraint that Kaisai was once bound to. She lays on it and spreads her limbs before calling for him. Now, quickly, tie me up. Yeah. As she requested, Kaisai tied her up like a tuna on a cutting board strapped by belts. It actually has an automatic restraining function, but Diarose wanted Kaisai to do it with his own hands, so she kept silent about it. Her body was moist from sweat that probably came from both the atmosphere and her own expectations, in combination with the obscene outfit she's in. As a bonus, she also gives off a womanly scent. It is by no means unpleasant, rather, it made even Kaisai excited. This is good enough? Yes, like that. Nice, Diarose joyfully said as she tried shaking her limbs in the restraint. Despite the vault's innate strength, the restraint did not budge at all. For the whip. You can use that one on the table there. Saying so, Valentina pointed at the big whip on the table. It's Diarose's old favorite that comes with an electrifying function. Kaisai silently picked it up and inspected it. Ooh. You are using that. You've got good taste, dear foolish little sister. Good taste. I didn't know. Since she can't tell the difference between whips, she just chose the one that seemed appropriate. That's why she was taken aback by the delighted look on her elder sister's face. Going along with this woman's delusion is hurting my head. Whatever, let's get this done quickly, said Valentina as shook her head while holding her temples. She then operates the console to have an appropriate angle for the filming, and Diarose now looks like she's being crucified on the wall. It hurts, right? Are you okay? Being subjected to the same thing before, Kaisai asked out of consideration. Since the restraints have to support your weight, they will dig into your skin in that posture. The more painful the better, right? Don't mind it. Ah, is that so? You sure love this kind of thing, huh? Slightly astounded, Kaisai lightly pokes Diarose's exposed navel with the tip of the whip. In response, Diarose raised a seductive moan. NNGH, you are so good at playing with my expectations, master. Glad to hear. Looking at the two frolickings, Valentina gritted her teeth. She thought that the two of them have grew a lot closer recently. Naturally, she didn't even consider that they might have already gone all the way though. Still, she can feel their excitement from the atmosphere. Now then, the preparations are ready. Let's get started. Okay. With a complicated expression, Valentina holds up the camera. Alright, action. CH 192. The play. Alright. Let's start with some self-introduction. After he hardened his expression, Kaisai said the script in a cold voice. Diarose Vista Agaran. 27 years old. Diarose answered in a weak tone which is clearly different from her usual cheerful and arrogant one. She's quite a good actress. What's your current job? I'm the Crown Princess of Nord. That's not it, right? A cracking sound echoed inside the interrogation room. It was the sound of the whip in Kaisai's hand hitting Diarose's thigh. A painful red mark remains on her sweat-soaked skin. Since it packed more power than he expected, Kaisai gazed worriedly at Diarose, but contrary to his expectations, she seemed to be ecstatic. I will ask you again, Diarose, what is your current job? A slave, sir. Yours. I am master's slave, shouted Diarose in a joyful voice. It's the tone that no matter how you hear it, it's clear that it came from the bottom of her heart. What kind of slave are you? A masochist slave, sir. Diarose is a perverted masochist slave. So you are a masochist? Even though he knew it was coming because it came straight from the script, Kaisai still has a stomachache hearing it. It was easy when he went along with her when they were alone with each other, but as expected, being seen like this still makes him feel bad. Yes, sir. I love being abused by master. I'm an irredeemable pervert, sir. For the first time, Diarose stopped referring to herself using worry, but used watashi instead. Well, if she refers to herself using worry as usual, then it might come out as haughty, so there's probably no helping it. TLN, where warawa are like a highborn's way of referring to self. Well said. Let me give you a reward. With a tense smile, Kaisai struck Diarose's shoulder with a whip. The loud sound from the whip made him flinch, but it was covered by Diarose's scream. But you know, for you to abandon such an important position willingly to become my slave, don't you think you are a bad girl, Diarose? Don't you feel sorry for your family and your vassals back home at all? No, sir. I'd rather be abused by you. Kaisai was conflicted if it was okay for him to say his next line, so he glanced at Valentina. Valentina, who's the one filming them, has a terribly apologetic expression on her face, but for some reason, her face was bright red. At least it doesn't seem like she wants to stop the shoot. Still somewhat unconvinced, Kaisai turned back toward Diarose. So you've completely turned into a masochistic dog, huh? Don't you feel any shame at all? We will show this video to everyone you know. Let them see it. Rather, please let everyone witness how ugly the unsightly bitch I have become, sir. Then we will have to let them see you at your lowest, huh? Kaisai took a remote out from his pocket and operated it to release the restraints on Diarose, and she fell on the floor. Although their positions are reversed, he couldn't shake off the sense of déjà vu. However, Diarose never attempted to rush at Kaisai. She simply crawls on all fours with her trembling body. Her expression looked completely excited. Stay. With that short command, Diarose stopped still in a dog-like pose. Kaisai then took off one of his shoes and dangled his bare foot in front of Diarose. This was at her request before the shooting started. Stay. You are a smart dog, so you can follow such a simple command, right? With his bare foot in front of her, Diarose seemed to be at the peak of her excitement, and her breathing had turned rough. Her mouth opened and her tongue tried to wiggle its way toward his toes. Stay. I said stay. I can't reward a dog who can't obey a simple order, you know. You. While lowering his foot to a position where her tongue cannot reach, Kaisai reprimanded her. Diarose continued to wiggle her tongue, but it seems that she was properly holding herself back. Saliva dripped from her mouth and formed a sticky string from her lips down to Kaisai's foot. Meanwhile, Valentina approached their side to take a close-up shot of Diarose's pitiful appearance. Well done. Good dog. While keeping his calm, Kaisai strokes Diarose's head. He then walks behind her and slapped her white butt, which was more than half exposed due to the bondage outfit. Oh. Diarose let out a pathetic moan. Kaisai then grabbed her side and pushed her to the floor. Normally, it would be impossible for him to push her down like that due to the difference in their height and weight, but Diarose allowed her body to spread on the floor, her face filled to the brim with expectations. Then, it's time for your reward. With a merciless smile, Kaisai started riding her body and cut. He stopped his movement at Valentina's slightly quivering voice. On the other hand, Diarose, who actually was expecting a reward, puffed up her cheeks in frustration. We are almost there. How stingy of you, little sister. That's the end of the script though, shouted Valentina with her cheeks bright red. CH 193. With Valentina. After the shoot, Kaisai was resting on the upper deck of the Oh Devanson. The sea breeze feels good on his heated body. He stares off into the blue horizon illuminated by the setting sun and lets out a sigh. You look tired, my love. Valentina sits down next to Kaisai with a small smile. She also seemed to be quite tired herself. It's reasonable given that she had to witness such a scene enacted by her elder sister and a man she loves. That was a disaster, huh? Both you and I. Who would have thought that we would be doing something like too true? Kaisai frowns and glances at Valentina. She's 20 centimeters taller than him, so she's obviously still bigger. When they both sat down, her cheeks looked somewhat reddened, but that's probably due to the effect of the shoot earlier. By the way, what about Rose? I don't see her anywhere. She said that she had to pick up something and went off earlier. This ship originally belonged to Rose, so she should have a lot of her personal belongings left on board. He doesn't know what she wants to grab, but Kaisai decided to leave her alone. Don't you think you give her too much freedom? She might have something that can disable the slave collar stashed here, you know. Well, it will probably be fine. Rose seems to be enjoying her life to the fullest lately. Unless something drastic happens, there's probably no need to worry about her betraying them, Kaisai thinks. More importantly, since you two are finally able to have a normal relationship, won't you consider calling her your sister again? She's no longer your enemy after all. I've already cut ties with her, so I planned to go through with it. She probably would be troubled if I try to mend it after all this time too. Rose doesn't care about that though. She does badmouth you sometimes, but she never holds a grudge against you, you know. After all, she even asked him to marry Valentina as well. Rose may look like that, but she unexpectedly cherishes her little sister quite a lot. However, Valentina silently shrugged. It seems that she no longer has any intention to discuss this any further. Still, you sure have gotten along with that woman quite a lot lately, huh? Given your first experience with her, I'm a little surprised, you know. Well, yeah. But the past aside, Rose is pretty easy to get along with, you see. She's smart and bright. She can be a bit crazy sometimes though. Then you don't hate Rose, huh? I like her a lot actually. Valentina had a complicated expression at his answer. It was a mix of pain and excitement. A weird expression. Kaisai tilted his head at the sight, but since she seems like she doesn't want him to ask, he decided to say nothing more. Come to think of it, what will Valentina do after the war is over? Kaisai asked, so as though he just remembered it. He recalled Rose asking him to shake up Valentina to make her go berserk later. That is obvious, right? If I can defeat Mother, then the other princes and major aristocrats will start fighting for the Empress's throne. I'm going to lead the soldiers who follow me to suppress them, said Valentina with a straight face. She then reaches for the sun, Alp, as though to grab it out of the sky. Then Mother apostrophe S. The Empress's crown will be mine. With that, I will create a peaceful country with no more war and senseless slaughter. Is that so? It seems that her goal still hasn't changed. Certainly, the current Nord is not a good country. They are waging wars of aggression in various countries and have no qualm in slaughtering civilians. Valentina's desire to stop that is something he's ought to support. But, I'm sorry, I can't go down that path with you. Why? Because he has already decided to marry Schleer and Rose as well as the others. He can't just throw away his family and go to war after he finally makes a decision to settle down. It was Kaisai's honest feeling that he should prioritize his loved one before some grandiose ideal, no matter how great it is. I think that what Valentina wants to do is great, but that's too big a dream for me. It's not something that a single mercenary can do anything about, and it's not the kind of thing you personally want for me, right? That's right. I want you to be my life partner. No. Not that. I just don't want to burden you with that kind of responsibility, my love. If I become a husband to the Empress, that kind of excuse won't work, right? Besides, I don't want to get myself involved in politics. Valentina turned silent at Kaisai's firm denial. Kaisai also looks away without saying anything more. There's no situation more awkward than this. Thanks for the wait. Man, it's been too long, so I almost forgot how to open my safe. Suddenly, a joyful voice came from behind the two of them. Before they knew it, Rose has already snuck up behind the two and tapped their shoulders. What's with the long face, you two? Are you hungry or something? Valentina clenched her teeth before jerking her body away from Dirose's hand. She then silently stood up and left. Dirose gazed at her back with a joyful expression. "You've shaken her up real good, huh? It seems our preparation is perfect. Were you listening?" "Well, yeah." Kaisai shrugged at Dirose's blunt reply. "What a terrible personality she has." CH 194. Back to the ship. In the end, Kaisai and Dirose went back to the Radiant, without meeting Valentina again. Right now, the two are walking down a corridor illuminated by white lights. "That blow with the whip was strong, right? Are you okay?" Kaisai asked Dirose, who was walking behind him with a worried expression. That was the first time he whipped someone. Of course, he was holding back, but it still ended up leaving some marks on her body. He has experienced being whipped by Dirose before, but at that time, there weren't any marks at all. Thinking about that now, he's feeling apologetic toward her. "What are you saying? That was just right?" "No, rather, that was still lacking, you know." When she answered him with such a refreshed expression, it's probably too much to ask Kaisai not to be troubled. He still can't quite wrap his head around this masochistic fetish. "Next time, you don't have to hold back, okay?" Dirose was having a glamorous smile while glancing at Kaisai's hand. In his hand was Dirose's favorite electromagnetic whip, which she pushed onto him. "You are so beautiful, so I don't really want to leave marks on your body though." Taken by surprise by that, Dirose turned her face away. She manages to fix up her expression, but it seems that her mouth has become slackened. It can't be helped then. Let's look for a whip that won't leave marks later." "So you still insist on being whipped, huh?" With a sigh, Kaisai looked around. They are discussing such an embarrassing topic, so he doesn't want anyone to overhear it. Fortunately, he doesn't see anyone in the audible range around them. "Also, since we're already on the topic, we've tried it in the chute earlier, but can you let me lick your feet in earnest next time? It's dirty, so don't do it." "What would you do if you have a stomachache later?" "But, on the record, I want to lick Master's whole bod." Dirose was saying that with a grin, but she immediately stopped when she spotted a figure in the distance. "That's Tursis?" A tall woman wearing an Auridian military uniform on board a Kalantian ship would be easy to spot, and the only one who matches such a description would be Tursis. She seemed to notice them as well, but as soon as she saw Kaisai's face, her face immediately turned bright red. She then reflexively covered her lips with her fingers and immediately ran in the opposite direction. Her messy footsteps that are far from her usual elegant ones steadily move away from their position. What was that all about? Dirose squints her eyes at Tursis's attitude and glances at Kaisai. "Don't tell me, you two kissed?" "On the lips, I mean." "Why, yeah. Well, it's quite stressful when you are asked if you have kissed another woman." Kaisai answered with cold sweat starting to come out of his body, but Dirose simply smiled joyfully without getting angry. To think that Stiff would look like that now. Q-fu, that was an interesting sight. Saying so, she gently patted Kaisai's head. "If you have free time, then you can try to train her. I'm sure that it will yield some interesting results, you know." Train. When the time comes, I'd like to help too. Sometimes, being on the abuser side can feel good too after all. Kaisai's feelings turned a little complicated at how she doesn't seem to get jealous at all, but at that moment, a figure appeared from around the corner. It's not Tursis, as the figure is too short to be her. You've returned. It was Schleer, who had a ghastly expression on her face. From the sound of her voice, it seems that she's very tired. This is probably due to the amount of her work. "Why, yeah. Well, are you okay?" "I'm fine, I have the rest of the day off." Schleer fluttered her way to their location with a weak smile. "It's already evening though. Well, it's better than not getting any rest at all. Anyway, I think I will be getting some shut-eye until dinner." With a small nod, Dirose looks alternately between Kaisai and Schleer's faces. She then whispers something into Kaisai's ear. "Master, why don't you give her a lap pillow? When your wife's tired, it's the husband's job to ease their fatigue, you know." Sure. Can he really ease her tiredness by doing that though? Still, Schleer's complexion is unusual. She certainly needs to relieve her stress. Since she might not want that, Kaisai tried asking her, If it's alright with you. Do you want to sleep together?" I can. Contrary to his expectations, his offer was very effective. Schleier's expression brightened and she skipped over to him. Why, yeah, thank you very much. It's been rough these days. There's a lot of work so I can't even go see you at all. After returning from their vacation, Schleier had been routed to the command center which had become her office. It's normal to be so stressed when you are buried under that much work. Well, I don't want to get in the way so I will be off. I need to clean myself up too. Rose let out a small smile at the situation and walked away while waving them goodbye. CH 195. Hugging pillow. After that, Kaisai was brought to Schleier's room. Although the room belongs to a princess, its size and interior are not that much different from Kaisai's. In that room, Kaisai was lying on the large bed in the corner of the room. Schleier was also lying down on the bed and hugged him from behind. Her heavy breaths touch his nape. It's embarrassing, but if this can elevate Schleier's tiredness, he's willing to bear it. Phew. Recharging complete. After a brief silence, Schleier finally moved her nose away from his nape and let out a satisfying breath. Just like that, she proceeded to tighten her arms around his body. Now he's literally a hugging pillow. Can we stay like this? No way. You should properly rest, you know. Although she puffed up her cheeks, her expression brightened. Naturally, she knows that she can't do much right now. She probably only jokingly asked him to spoil her. When the war is over, let's do this a lot. Yeah. Nfafu. While cutely purring like a cat, Schleier rubs her cheek against Kaisai's. Perhaps because she was tired, right now she seemed to act a little younger than her usual self. For a while, the silent but cozy time continued for the two. Only the sound of their breathing reverberated in the room. In that moment of silence, Schleier opened her mouth. I'm sorry about today. I never wanted you to do something like that. It's probably about the video. Feeling a long sigh on his nape, Kaisai groaned a little. It can't be helped. It was to increase our chance of winning, right? There's no reason not to do it. That's true, but with her mouth curled, Schleier continued to hug Kaisai. Rather, I feel bad for you, you know. Doing something like that with Rose today and laying a honey trap for another woman tomorrow. Don't you think that it's unfair for you, Schleier? Yes. When Kaisai said that with a worried voice, Schleier tilted her head. Kaisai personally felt bad for having such a close relationship with so many women, but Schleier seems to not understand his dismay. After thinking to herself for a while, she went, as though she just understood. Kaisai, that's Terran's way of thinking, you know. We, Volds, really don't have that kind of value. What do you mean? Schleier shook her head sideways and looked back at him with a smile. We may look almost the same and can have children with each other, but we still belong to two different races. It's obvious that our way of life would be different too, right? Schleier continues while stroking Kaisai's ear. The most different part in Terran and Vold's bodies. I know that it's rude, but men are prey in a Vold society. We caught and shared them among ourselves. That's how our ancestors lived their lives for thousands of years. Lieutenant Makishima, Rose, and the others who signed the form. They're my family, and I'm fine with Valentina and Eleanor-san joining us in the future as well, Schleier gently said while stroking his hair. As long as we share the same man, we are a family, a flock. As our husband, you have the duty to love us all. There's no need for you to feel guilty about anything, Kaisai. Somehow, it feels weird, you know. Culture shocks like this are normal in a cross-species marriage, I think. No, we can overcome this together, surely. Right. If she's going that far, then he has no reason not to be convinced, thought Kais with a bitter smile. And it's a fact, you know. As long as I'm the first wife, I'm the leader of this flock, not you. That's why if I say it's okay, then it's okay. Kaisai doesn't have to feel responsible at all. I see. Volds are like that after all, I guess that makes sense. Vold society is harem-based, but the family head is not a man but a woman instead. Such a thing is hard to imagine as a Terran. In a sense, their society is close to that of the bees. After pushing you into this marriage, saying this now felt kind of unfair though. When Schleier began to apologize, Kaisai silently kissed her on the forehead. I signed that marriage form because I wanted to. Right. Schleier happily smiles and kisses Kaisai back. She then tightly hugged his body while being careful not to hurt him. Even if you ask me to let you go, I will never let go, you know. Be prepared. How scary. She jokingly said that, but her tone indicates that she's serious. On the other hand, Kaisai shrugged. When I first met you, I never expected it to turn out like this, you know. I was aiming for you since the beginning though. Once a Volt sets their eyes on their prey, they never let them go, you know. We are carnivorous after all. Seriously, that one is scary. The two started to giggle happily at each other. CH 196, sister. The next morning, Kaisai and the others were traveling in an old large sedan. They are heading to the hotel where Eleanor, one of the four heavenly, is placed under house arrest. Man, it's been so long. A woman with short hair who's sitting next to Kaisai said with a cheerful smile. She's Frey, Schlier's twin sister. In terms of appearance, they looked surprisingly similar to each other. I actually wanted to go see you more frequently, but I have a lot of work, you see. You've been visiting neighboring countries to negotiate for their support, right? The front line can't function properly without the supplies you procured, so I'm grateful for your work, you know. He. You are making your sister-in-law blush, you know. Man, it was worth all the effort. With a smile, Frey started snuggling up on Kaisai. She was like this last time they met as well, but this time the distance between them has shrunk. Hey, it's bad manners to touch someone else's man. Desu, I'd like you to stop. Desu. Nora, who was sitting opposite on Kaisai's other side, said so with a threatening voice and peels her off. Kaisai. Someone else man, huh? Foo. Frey didn't resist, but she gazed coldly at Nora in response. Her attitude seems to be hiding some meaning and Nora recoils a bit. Don't tell me, you two. Will you stop with this pointless quarreling? When Nora was about to say something, Dairo said so from the passenger seat. Even without weapons involved, the place we are heading to is a battlefield. Do you think you can win a fight when you are fighting among yourselves? Right, sister-in-law. Dairo said that as though she knows everything and wants Frey to compromise for now. It doesn't feel right when you treat me like I'm older, but well, you're right. Frey shrugs with a smirk. Her gestures matched her bright and cool appearance. Even Schlier would look intelligent like this if she would just stay silent, rudely thought Kaisai. Her true self would show if she opens her mouth though. Come to think of it, can I confirm something first? When we arrive at the hotel, we are supposed to have these two meet M''S. Eleanor first, right? Frey asks while glancing at Kaisai and Nora, as Schlier has already told her about their plan to seduce Eleanor. Well, she will be alarmed if we all go in at once, you see. First, we have to make her feel relaxed. Our turn will be in the afternoon. The meeting with the head retainer from House Fafletter. Currently, the head retainer of the Fafletter family, Eleanor's house, is visiting Kalanshire to negotiate her return. It is highly likely that the head retainer will not be convinced to join their side even if Eleanor herself wants to, since she's not the family head. That's why they need to separate the negotiation. I've already asked head retainer San to come to the hotel, so if their talk with Eleanor San goes well, we can have her show up at the meeting, right? That's my plan from the start. If they fail with Eleanor, then we will have to do our best with the head retainer after all. If we can get Eleanor on our side, then it will be more convenient for us. Oh, how scary. Frey bitterly smiled at Dairos, who stated her plan. It's a matter of course. I've been thinking this since you were our enemy, but you are real smart, aren't you? It's good that you are our ally now. Dairos let out a sigh, as it was hard for her to judge whether that was Frey being sarcastic or if her praise was genuine. Perhaps Frey doesn't fully trust Dairos yet. Well, that's a given considering her past. Right now I'm nothing more than a slave. As long as Master sides with you, my power is Kalanshire's. I see. So it's Kaisai-kun that I should be scared of instead, right? Said Frey. She poked Kaisai's cheek with her finger. Nora glared at her, but Frey completely ignored her. Well, to be honest, it's not like I am completely on board with the strategy, but it is what it is. There's no way around it, I guess. I'm counting on you, Kaisai-kun. For what? Come on, you understand, right? I'm talking about seducing Eleanor-san, of course. The last part was whispered into his ear. The tickling sensation felt strangely pleasant and his back started shaking a little. I'm not that confident though. Is that a joke? Frey plainly retorted. Both Dairos and Nora were literally seduced by him to join Kalanshire. Moreover, they are not his only victims either. His seduction power is so great that even if they made all their spies work together, it wouldn't be as effective as him at this. Well, it will be fine. You have a Nissan's stamp of approval, said Frey with a bitter smile as she looks at Nora, who was resting her head on Kaisai's shoulder. CH 197. The enticement won. It was about 30 minutes later that the group arrived at the hotel. Since it is one of the most luxurious hotels in Kalanshia, its interior is even more luxurious than a bedroom reserved for aristocrats on board there. Radiant. I was wondering who's paying me a visit. It's you, Nora-chan. In the royal suite at the top floor of the hotel was a girl with blonde hair and a unique ringlet hairstyle, Eleanor Alfafletta. Her complexion seems to be good, suggesting that even though she was placed under house arrest, her living condition is quite decent. Hello, been a while, Desu. Nora raised her hand and greeted her back with a familiar tone before sitting down without asking for the room's owner's permission. She also pulled Kaisai's sleeve and made him sit with her. Nora-chan, who's that with you? Asked Eleanor after she sighed at Nora's usual self-paced attitude. She has never met Kaisai face-to-face before, so it's obvious that she would be confused when he suddenly showed up at her door. About that, I'm actually here to notify Eleanor-san of something, Desu. Oh my, what is it? After seating across the two who seemed to be slightly nervous, Eleanor continued. We are getting married, Desu. Huh? Nora grinned and announced so while hugging Kaisai, and Eleanor was dumbfounded. Let me introduce you. This person is Hokuto Kaisai-san. He's the feared mercenary called the Wicked Star, and we have just got engaged, Desu. Speaking of the Wicked Star, that's the name of the mercenary who has brought the Norwegian to its knees. The memory of the battle where Eleanor along with all the four heavenly facing him is still fresh in her mind. Don't tell me, you betrayed Nord from the beginning. How and why is she engaged to the enemy ace? It would be more plausible to think that Nora was with Kalanshia from the beginning rather than saying they met during the war. Eleanor has, until now, thought that Nora's betrayal was due to her dissatisfaction with Diarose. Since they didn't pledge their allegiance to Diarose, she could understand her feelings despite how Nora chose to become her enemy. That's why she was friendly when Nora showed up at her door. But that's not it, Desu. We were originally enemies, but that's exactly why our flame of love is burning right, Desu. Right, Kaisai-san. Yes, that's right. What's this about flame of love though? Kaisai was wondering about that, but since they are in the middle of a script prepared by Diarose, he decided to just go along. Is that the case? My apology. Nora's words sound very much like a clumsy excuse, but Eleanor cleared her throat and continued as though she was convinced by that. As Nora and the others said, she might be a little gullible. However, if that's truly the case, then it's pretty much a romantic story, isn't it? It's almost like it came straight out of a play or a movie, right? Foo-foo. Nora crossed her arms and said that with a smug look on her face, but she quickly undid that and turned to Eleanor. But there's one thing I'm troubled with, Desu. Since I think of Eleanor-san like an elder sister, I want to consult you, Desu. Who? Eleanor smiled at the elder sister part and urged Nora to continue with a happy look. Actually, there's a condition for us to get engaged, Desu. After all, I'm used to be with Nord and I'm just a knight with a commoner background. A condition. Kalanshia sure is nasty. What kind of condition is it? I have to share Kaisai-san with the big shots of this country, Desu. Well, it's polygamy, you see. But as I said, my position right now is too weak. If I don't do anything, then it will be a marriage in name only, and that woman will take Kaisai-san away from me, Desu. How terrible. Interfering with such a loving couple is unforgivable. Just as Diarose planned, Eleanor was riled up. While listening to the two's conversation with a stiff expression, Kaisai felt horrified at his slave's scheming ability. I understand now. If there's anything I can do, then please tell me. I will help pave your path for love, Nora-chan. As expected of Eleanor-san. I always believed that you would say that, Desu. With a grin, Nora slammed the table in front of her with her hand. She has quite an acting skill. I was hoping that Eleanor-san could become my real sister, you see. If Eleanor-san participates in this marriage as well, then that woman won't be able to do whatever she wants after all. Participate? Me? Marrying this man? Surprised, Eleanor looks at Kaisai. For the first time, she closely examined Kaisai's face, and for a brief moment, she showed the presence of a predator. Hey. Can you tell me more about this? Her expression doesn't seem that reluctant at all. Ch 198. The enticement to, Well, Eleanor's interest was greatly piqued by the talk of marriage. On the other hand, Kaisai stares straight into her eyes and lowers his head while breaking out in a cold sweat. Once again, I'm Hokuto Kaisai, a mercenary. Please treat me well. Ugh, how rude of me. I haven't even introduced myself yet. The marriage talk Nora brought up was so shocking that she couldn't afford to do that, so Eleanor shyly averted her eyes away from him for a moment. I am Eleanor Fafletta, 5th daughter of Countess Fafletta and one of the 4 heavenly. Heavenly Thunder, it is nice to meet you. Although they've met each other several times on the battlefield, this is the first time they've seen each other face to face. The two are both nervous. On top of that, Eleanor had already perceived this meeting as a kind of matchmaking. Still, I would never have thought that their wicked star is such a pretty person. I heard that you are a man, but, to be honest, I'm quite surprised. Ha ha ha. Kaisai laughs it off. He's often told such a thing, but as usual, it doesn't make Kaisai happy at all. However, is this truly all right with you, Kaisai-san? Marrying me, I mean. We had been exchanging fire on the battlefield just a short while ago, you know. That apostrophe s. Well, Nora is the same, and besides, I often heard about you from Nora as well. She told me that you are reliable and a noble person, so it would be my honor to marry you instead. Naturally, that was completely a lie until she brought the matter up. The matter regarding Eleanor seemed to have been completely absent from Nora's head as she was spending her time playing around. It was Dirose's advice that made him put it like that. And it seems that Dirose's plan was super effective. Eleanor's now happily glancing at Nora, who shyly averts her eyes away in response. As expected, she does have a talent for acting. However, I am an aristocrat. Marriage is not a decision I can make lightly. Would you mind showing me your hand? My hand? He doesn't know what she plans to do, but Kaisai obediently extends his right hand to Eleanor. Seeing his white and slender hand, she let out a small sigh and wrapped her hands around his. She then squeezed his fingers a little and rubbed the back of his hand. It was tickling and his cheeks tingled a little. Kaisai looked toward Nora as if to ask her what Eleanor was doing, but Nora simply shook her head sideways. It doesn't seem like she knows either. Ignoring them, Eleanor laid her palm on his and compared their sizes. They are almost the same size, but Eleanor's was slightly bigger. Kaisai received a mild shock from that, but Eleanor holds his hand with an expression that was filled with satisfaction. Now their fingers are locked together in a so-called lover's hand-holding. May I? Without even time for him to ask what she was talking about, Eleanor got up from her seat, walked close to him, and urged him to stand up. Excuse me. Saying so, Eleanor tightly hugged him. Her plump chest was pressed against his. Surprisingly, from what he felt, hers was bigger than Dirose's. They are quite big. Kaisai's heart rate immediately soared, but Eleanor ignored that and continued to hug him. She continued to embrace him for a while, but when she noticed Nora's gaze, Eleanor cleared her throat and let go. Before he knew it, Eleanor's face had reddened and her breath had become rough. It seems that she's a little aroused. Good. You passed. I accepted. Kaisai was confused. Speaking of matchmaking, isn't that the thing where two people try talking to each other normally first before coming to a decision? You are not going to ask me about stuff like my family, my financial situation, or my personality first. I hold no interest in your family or financial situation. After all, I already have a prestigious family and plenty of money. Besides, I wouldn't want my man to provide for me. Also, since Nora-chan took a liking to you, your personality should be decent as well, said Eleanor with a boastful expression. Then, what was that? I was checking the comfort of your hands and body. If we are in a relationship, then we would be holding hands and hugging each other every day. No? If I don't find you to my liking, then I can't possibly want to spend my entire life with you after all. Is that so? It seems that Eleanor is big on skinship. However, Kaisai was taken aback by how quickly Vulds can decide on their marriage. For Terrans, it would be considered way too fast if you marry your partner after dating for a month. Seeing Kaisai's confused expression, Nora whispers into his ear. It's Vulds' way to jump in immediately once we find our favorite prey. Desu. If we hesitate and let the chance escape, then we could stay unmarried for the rest of our lives. You know, you people really do live in a moment, huh? Just like what Schleer told him yesterday, their way is just confusing for him since it's completely different from his Terran culture. After smiling wryly at him, Nora turns to Eleanor. Now we are sisters, Soon. Yes, Nora-chan. Fufu. I would never have thought that we would end up in this kind of relationship. Seeing Eleanor happily replying like that, Nora's smile deepened. That means Eleanor Nichan is now our ally. Soon we are about to enter into a decisive battle with Nora, but I wouldn't want to point my gun at my dear elder sister. In Vold's culture, what should be valued is not your loyalty toward your nation but the bond in your family, whether that be by blood or by law. As long as she shares a husband with Nora, Eleanor has no choice but to join Kalanchia's side. For the first time, Eleanor's expression crumbled. Also, it seems that the head retainer of House Fallfitter will be coming here in the afternoon. Please do your best to persuade him for us. Eleanor instinctively reached for Nora, but she dodged that and snuck something inside Kaisai's jacket before continuing. Then, if you will excuse me, I'm leaving Kaisai-san here, so do feel free to deepen your relationship with him. Desu. With that said, Nora quickly left the room. Eleanor and Kaisai, who were left behind, looked at each other. They were drenched in a cold sweat. This was not a part of the script. Seriously. Eleanor was also shocked, so she looked alternately between the direction Nora left and Kaisai. After taking a deep breath, her eyes glanced toward the bed. Well, there's nothing we can do, so like Nora-chan said, let's deepen our relationship. Of the bed. Wouldn't do that right after we've met is a little. It will be fine. I will be gentle. No. That's just strange, right? Seeing Eleanor's breathing turn wild, Kaisai stiffened up. While thinking about how he ended up in a room alone with a woman, Kaisai realized that what Nora stuck into his pocket was a piece of paper. What was written there was simple. Scream out loud if she tries to assault you. I'm going to rescue you immediately. Apparently, she's planted some kind of bugging device in the room. It seems that she still wants to go with the blackmail plan in case Eleanor tries to do something to him. He thought that they'd given up on that plan, but it seems that it is still alive and well. Kaisai let out a small sigh at the dirty scheme. TLN, still recovering from food poisoning. So tired. CH 199. Pali. Fortunately, Kaisai didn't have to call for Nora. However, he was mentally exhausted due to the skinship, which he found hard to determine if it was sexual harassment such as hand-holding. That's why Kaisai, who's attending the meeting with the Fafletter's head retainer, has a terribly sour expression. He's now waiting in a large room waiting for all the attendees to arrive in the afternoon while letting out a sigh. Man, what a shame, soon. It would have been easier if she laid her hand on you. Next to him, Nora whispered with a dissatisfied expression. Kaisai shrugged without answering her and turned his gaze forward. In front of him was Eleanor, who had an awkward expression on her face. Her gaze was fixed on Diarose, who was sitting on a seat in the corner. Why is Diarose-sama here? It would probably be unreasonable to tell her not to mind Diarose's presence. After all, the former top of her army is participating in the negotiation on Kalanchia's side. Well, I will explain later. Don't mind me, replied Diarose with her arms folded under her abundant chest. More importantly, it seems that your head retainer has arrived. From the direction Diarose glanced at, an old woman in formal attire entered the room. Beside her was an intelligence officer from the Kalanchian army who served as her guide. Fermi. Eleanor stood up with a big smile. Hearing the joyful voice, the old woman stopped her feet. Oju-sama, I'm glad that you are safe. Come on. How many times have I told you to stop calling me that? While complaining, Eleanor rushed to the old woman and gently hugged her. The old woman accepted her hug and tears could be seen on the edge of her eyes. Are you injured? Have you been eating properly? Auntie, stop it. It's embarrassing. After patting the bitterly smiling Eleanor on the shoulder, the old woman hurriedly raised her head. At the end of her gaze was Frey, who was faintly smiling at them. Excuse my rudeness. I am Fermi Regale, head retainer to House Fafletter, 5th Princess of Kalanchia, Frey Henrietta. Thank you for meeting with us today. Frey smiled and shook hands with the head retainer, Fermi. When she speaks in a serious tone this way, Kaisai really finds it difficult to distinguish her from Schlier. Now, please take a seat. With a gentle tone, Frey urged the two from the Nord side to take a seat. After that, a Kalanchian bureaucrat in a suit came in and handed Frey some documents. After a glance at them, Frey turned her gaze back to Eleanor and Fermi. After exchanging some formal greetings, they immediately get to the main subject. Now, Let us negotiate the release of Eleanor-san. Certainly. The head retainer came all the way to this remote country to hasten the release process for Eleanor, who was taken prisoner, so she has no objection. The head has asked me to relay that you can increase the ransom price higher. Of course. This will be in exchange for your cooperation to hasten the release process. Regarding that, Frey glanced at Eleanor. Seeing Eleanor reluctantly nod, she now knows how to proceed. Since she did not decline the marriage talk with Kaisai, Frey can treat her as an accomplice. There will be no change to the ransom. Who? Wrinkles formed between the head retainer's eyebrows. Of course, she was not glad that she didn't have to spend extra money on the release. After all, she herself is an experienced aristocrat. That's why she's already expecting Kalanshia to ask House Fafletta to do something that Kalanshia cannot buy with money. Instead, we would like to ask for your support. Do you mean to have us supply you with information and other war supplies? No, we would like to go a step beyond that. We would like House Fafletta to join our side. Out of the question. The head retainer's expression did not change, but Frey could pick that up from her. However, she wouldn't have tried that if it was a losing battle. Fermi, I've seen the atrocity the Norwegian army committed here. Their plan works out. After glancing at Kaisai, Eleanor started speaking to the head retainer. Her tone was exaggerated like an actress's. At first, she refused to switch sides because of her sense of loyalty, but with everything said and done, she was upset. In the first place, Eleanor is a stupid but noble woman. When Kaisai started talking about what the Norwegian army had done in his time alone with her, she grew angry at them and changed her stance. Such things like pointing weapons at innocent civilians are not something we aristocrats should condone. To be frank, I have no love left for that empress. The head retainer glared at Frey. However, the one who hatched this plan was not her. With a prompt from Frey, Diarose grinned and started speaking. By the way, Fermi Dono, I know it's sudden, but don't you recognize my face? Diarose leans forward, making the head retainer's expression go. Who the hell is she? Then, her face stiffened. If she's a Norwegian aristocrat, then there's no way that she wouldn't recognize such a familiar face. After all, she's supposed to be their next empress. Why, you are, Your Highness Diarose. WHCH 200. The scammer. Naturally, the head retainer is also aware that Diarose is currently a POW in Kalanshia. But why is she here in negotiation for Eleanor's return? Confused at this incomprehensible development, a bead of cold sweat trails down the head retainer's wrinkled face. You want to know why I'm here? Cuckoo. That's simple. Diarose elegantly laughed before sticking her index finger up and shaking it from side to side. I am an involved party. In other words, I had a hand in turning this entire operation against Nord from the beginning. Wow! Hearing that from someone who was once a part of the highest ranking class in the Norwegian army, the head retainer was shocked. If what she's saying is true, then it means that Diarose has already betrayed Nord. Surprised? But think about it. Don't you think that this whole thing is strange from the beginning? The mighty fleet of Nord defeated by some bumpkin country. No matter how you think about it, that's just impossible, right? With her homeland suddenly insulted right in front of her, Frey frowned, but she didn't voice any complaints. She understands that this must also be a part of Diarose's plan. On top of that, we had the four heavenly Nord Empire's strongest all shot down in one operation. Don't you think that it's unusual at all? Don't tell me. Everything went according to design from the start. Mine that is. You were making it up as you went through the whole thing, weren't you? Kaisai retorted in his head, but he didn't let anything slip from his mouth. Diarose continues with a relaxed expression. I have been working secretly with the Kalanchians to minimize the damage to my fleet before neutralizing it. As a result, more than half of the Kalanchian expeditionary fleet is now siding with the Kalanchian army to combat Nord. Do you think anyone but me can achieve such a convenient result? Certainly. That was complete bulls, but it seems that the head retainer bought it. After all, Diarose's fame as a general was known throughout the Nord Empire. Rather than believing that she was defeated by some wild card, the explanation that it was all according to her plan from the start was much more plausible. However, why? I couldn't fathom why Your Highness Diarose would rebel against Nord. In her former position, the entirety of Nord's national power would sooner or later be hers. There's no reason for Diarose to risk it all in rebellion. Seeing the head retainer's confusion, Diarose shook her head sideways. The purge bombing performed on civilian planets, It's something that even the citizens of Nord would frown upon. That operation was supposed to be my own idea, but actually it is not. It was something the Empress forced me to do. Dirose's voice sounded extremely sad yet resentful. What she said is true, and her emotions may have truly come from her heart, making others do dirty work for her while she's sitting back and reaping all the results. Even as her daughter. No. It's exactly because I am her daughter that I can't forgive it. That's why this is my revenge against the Empress. What? The head retainer couldn't confirm whether what Dirose said was true or not. However, back in Nord, it was true that Dirose was condemned while the Empress escaped all responsibilities while pinning everything on her. Thinking that she plotted a rebellion after being used as a scapegoat would make sense. I no longer desire the seat of the Empress. I've made a vow to myself. Even if I have to fall to slavery, I would drag Mother down from her throne, Dirose proclaimed while tracing the slave collar with her finger. Seeing that, the expressions on Eleanor and the head retainer's faces immediately changed. Why, Your Highness. It can't be. That is real? Eleanor was quivering. Once a slave collar is put on you, there's no way to remove it. Moreover, it is impossible for someone who has such a thing around their neck to return to being an aristocrat. That's why such a display is showing Dirose's extent of determination. This is necessary to gain the Kalantians' trust. I have no regrets, Dirose replied with a determined tone. Well, of course, you have no regrets, thought Kaisai as he turned his cold gaze away from the whole situation. Another thing, I also have the Melem's full cooperation in this endeavor. Take a look at this. With that said, Dirose took out an envelope from her pocket and gave it to Eleanor and the head retainer. Looking at the wax seal, the head retainer was astonished. The wax seal certainly is the crest of House Melem. In other words, Turcis's family crest. After a glance at Dirose, Eleanor opens the envelope. When they checked the contents of the letter contained inside, they both gulped and punched in a code written on it on their mobile terminal. A security code that is extremely difficult to forge is usually included in this type of official document, and it allows the sender to be easily identified by inputting the code into their terminal. It's real. To think that even Tursis Sama is also betraying Nord. Although she is a little eccentric, Tursis is quite famous as a textbook example of a knight. And to add to that, she is also the head of one of the three most powerful noble houses in Nord. If she's now siding with Kalantia, then Dirose's story is very convincing. The head retainer pondered on it for a while as she tapped the table in front of her with her old finger. The dry sound of tapping strangely echoes in the quiet room. And about a minute later, she looked up. I understand Your Highness Dirose's intention now. With it looking like she's about to make a decision, Dirose grinned in her heart. However, we have a vast territory to take care of. I am aware that this may sound greedy of us, but we can't cooperate with you without anything to gain. In this regard, can you tell me how this will benefit House Fafleta? TLN. 200 chapters already, only 100 more. CH 201. Don't count your chickens. If Dirose had such an intricate plan to rebel against Nord, then she might actually come out as a victor, thought the head retainer. After all, her victories and the military career so far do support her boastful claim. Her cause is just. She even has a chance of victory. The question would be if there's enough benefit for the risk. Being looked at by the head retainer's sharp eyes, which is surprising for her age, Frey glanced at Kaisai. First, I would like to propose a marriage between this person and Eleanor-san. A marriage of convenience is quite common in aristocratic society. The head retainer had already expected such a thing to come out. When she looked to her side to try to check if Eleanor is satisfied with this, the head retainer realized that she was already ensnared, so she turned her eyes toward Kaisai instead. Excuse my rudeness, but who might this person be? He seems to be a Terran to me though. This is Hokuto Kaisai-san. He's my Frey Henrietta's fiancé. NGH? Kaisai let out a weird voice. He did agree to marry Schleer, but he has never talked about that with Frey. He hurriedly looked at Frey, but she kept her serious face on and refused to look back at him. With nowhere to turn, he shifts his eyes to Dirose to ask for her help. Her expression seemed apologetic and she lightly lowered her head at him. It's not a face that says don't worry, We are just saying that to get through this at all. It was a trap. Kaisai instinctively thought so. Sisters sharing a husband is a natural practice among Volds. Kaisai recalled being told that before. The reason Fra acted like that in the car earlier was probably that she knew that it was decided that she will marry him too. If we share a husband, then us and Elena-san would become sister-in-law. That would be a good way to establish our alliance, correct? I see. That sounds reasonable. Seeing the head retainer naturally accept that, Nora, who's sitting next to Kaisai, grit her teeth. Incidentally, Eleanor also looks at Fra thinking, so this is the one Nora-chan talked about. It seems she completely bought the story Nora told her before. You went and done it now, you bitches. Nora was snarling in a small voice that Kaisai could only hear, but since the marriage with Eleanor was her idea in the first place, she can't say anything extra now. Fra probably understood that and tried to establish her engagement with Kaisai as a fact, choosing this chance. You said that I might have to add another bride, but now I have two more, right? That one isn't my fault. Fra smiled triumphantly at the two who were whispering to each other for a brief moment before reverting to her serious expression. She then directed the head retainer and Eleanor's attention to Tercis's letter. Not only that, it was decided that he will be marrying Tercis-san as well. Eleanor raised her voice in surprise. After all, she knows Tercis to be a stoic person who always refuses to attend matchmaking. If the news of her marriage comes out, it would be treated as a pretty big deal even in peacetime. Congratulations. In other words, this will be an alliance between House Fafletta, the Henrietta royal family, and House Melemime, correct? That certainly sounds wonderful. The head retainer also seemed to be genuinely happy about the arrangement. This is a good time to have an alliance with the Melems. If the Empress truly gets dethroned, it is obvious that a civil war will follow. With the backing of the Melems, it wouldn't be difficult for their house to use the turmoil to their advantage and expand. House Fafletta is but an upstart, so they are often shunned by aristocratic houses with a long history. They had to endure harassment from them, and their house's growth is actually stagnant. This is their chance to break the status quo, so getting on board is the obvious choice here. Certainly, with this arrangement, it would not be bad for us if House Henrietta replaced House Argarin. However, there is one thing that is still worrying me. And that is? It's the distance between our territories. From our territory, it would take some time even with a high-speed vessel. This would make things inconvenient in our alliance. No, even with faster-than-light technology, covering that much physical distance is still a difficulty. It would be inconvenient when one needs to send military reinforcement to another, and it would take time for the messengers to communicate. Regarding that, I would like to make a suggestion. Is it possible to give Eleanor-san a peerage? She would serve as our bridge to House Fafletta, so it would be best if you can prepare such a position for her. If she's going to marry Kaisai anyway, then Eleanor will end up living in Calansia, and Fra thought that it wouldn't be a bad idea to have her take such a position. That is a good idea. If a peerage of a viscountess is enough, then I believe we can prepare it right away. A viscountess is it? Thank you for understanding. Since the head of House Fafletta is a countess, a viscountess position that is neither too high nor too low from that would be just right. With these conditions, I think our alliance is possible. I will head back and discuss this more with the head. I believe that we can give you a good reply soon. After glancing at the memo in her hand, the head retainer said that with a smile. The head retainer couldn't make such an important decision by herself, but with how long she served the family and its current head, she believes that she can convince them. Thank you very much. Also, please take a look at this document. It detailed our future strategy. With this, their alliance is as good as established. Thinking so, Fra secretly stroked her chest in relief. TLN, the negotiation is done. Back to the shenanigans. CH-202. A toast. Man, thanks a lot. It's thanks to Kaisai-kun that things went so well. That evening, Kaisai and Fra was having dinner in a private room of the hotel's restaurant. No one else was with them in this small and stylish room. Diarose forcibly dragged Nora, who protested the arrangement, and they are now in a similar room nearby. That was probably Diarose's consideration toward Fra. Well, ha ha ha. I'm really glad it all worked out. In this particular case, Kaisai's only role was bait. In the negotiation part, he was just sitting there to show his face to the other party. Thinking about it now, rather than happily celebrating, he could only smile bitterly at how little he's done. Seeing him like that, Fra shyly scratched her cheek. I mean, I do feel sorry I know that it was a lot of burden on you. It's okay, we are already kind of a relative after all. If things keep going in this direction then his body surely won't last, but it was already done. He isn't going to complain about their plan to rope in Eleanor now. Still, he has something else on his mind. Are we really going to get married? Why, yeah. Freya blushed and started to fiddle on the table. Her eyes averted from him. Kaisai-kun is already engaged to a lot of people, but most of them are from Nord, right? Considering the political balance, it would be bad if you only have 2 brides from Kalanshia after all. With her eyes still turned away, Freya said that as if she was trying to make an excuse. However, a moment later, she smiled and turned her eyes back towards Kaisai. Well, that's just a front though. A front. Actually you see, from the beginning, I've been going for you. Well, let's say that it's love at first sight. I see. Recalling Schlier telling him the same thing, Kaisai's face reddened. They are twins, so they might be more similar than he expected. That being said, I was aiming for polygamy from the start. It's pathetic of me, isn't it? I was actually pushing Schlier-chan's back At first, I doubted if it would work out though. Saying so, Freya looked away again. Her cheeks are slightly inflated and she looked kind of embarrassed. Do you hate the idea of marrying this in-law? If you don't then, let's get married. Even if you don't like me now, I will do my best so that you will come to love me. When asked this kind of question, Kaisai always couldn't bring himself to say that he hates the other party, so he could only sigh. Of course, his answer will be the same this time as well. I don't hate you. You are Schlier-chan after all. That's enough for me now. Eventually, I will make sure that you will come to love me regardless of Schlier-chan. Surprisingly, Freya seems to be quite confident. Seeing her smile at him, Kaisai also smiled back at her. Then, the two heard a knock coming from the door. A waitress entered the room with a silver tray in her hand. The waitress elegantly placed cocktail glasses in front of them. It seems to be an aperitif. Sorry, I'm still a minor, so. While looking at the content of the glass, which seemed like white wine to him, Kaisai said that while waving his hand from side to side. Right, Schlier-chan told me about that before, I think. Hokuto-kun is 19 years old, right? Yes. In our country, 18 years old is already considered an adult. It's fine, said Freya with a grin. However, Kaisai was a little troubled. After all, even if there's no problem regarding the law, getting a man drunk is still a common tactic in Vald society. It's your first time drinking, so I chose something that's easy to drink. It's okay. Okay, I will try. Well, the other party is someone who he's already scheduled to marry anyway. She wouldn't resort to that kind of tactic to have his way with him now. Thinking so, Kaisai picked up the glass. I'm glad. Then let's have a toast, Freya happily said, and the two brought their glasses together for a toast. When Kaisai nervously put the glass to his mouth, he found the content surprisingly delicious. It had a juice-like refreshing sweetness and it was easy for him to drink too. This is nice. This time he took another sip without thinking too much about it. When he swallowed it down, he got a warm feeling in the back of his stomach. Be careful, okay? It's easy to drink, so a first-time drinker can get drunk in a blink of an eye after all, said Freya with a mischievous expression as she placed her glass on the table. She's quite an experienced drinker, so she knows how to handle her alcohol. Since she's finally got a chance, she wants to enjoy her time drinking with Kaisai. I'll be careful. Saying so, Kaisai took another sip. Because they are alone, he might have gotten thirsty from all the nervousness. Perhaps the alcohol is already working. His cheeks have turned a little redder as well. Seeing him like that, Freya presented him with a glass of cold water while suppressing the dirty urges that swell from inside her. Ch 203. The ambush. In the end, it wasn't until late at night that Kaisai returned to the Radiant. He parted ways with Dairose and Nora, who accompanied him in front of his room before opening the door feeling tipsy. The moment the light turned on automatically, Kaisai let out a scream. The reason is Tursis, who was kneeling on the floor in front of him. She's staring at him with a look that he has never seen before. My lord, as she says that in a faint voice, Tursis shakily stands up. Kaisai was unable to comprehend why Tursis is in his room, so his body remains frozen. She said that she needs a key to his room so that she can protect him in case of an emergency, so he entrusted one to her, but she has never made use of it until now. PL. please take this. While Kaisai was still confused, Tursis presented him with the long sword she usually hangs around her waist along with its scabbard. When he instinctively received it from her, it felt extremely heavy. After all, it's a real sword. Please end my life with this. I am no longer qualified as a knight. Why? Kaisai's mind turned blank at her sudden request. Certainly, she seemed off ever since he kissed her yesterday, but asking him to kill her is just too much. Last night. You are ugh. She said that far before tears began spilling from her scarlet eyes. It's clear that she's not in a normal state of mind. In a hurry, Kaisai pulled her hand and made her sit on his bed. She won't make any sense unless he calms her down first. Thinking so, he gently wipes her tears with his handkerchief and speaks to her in a soft voice. Well, calm down a little, okay? I've just got back. After gently patting her shoulder, Kaisai took out a bottle of mineral water from the refrigerator and poured it into 2 cups before handing one to Tursis. He actually wanted to serve tea or coffee, but he's quite clumsy, so he can't really brew either of them well. My deepest apology. Receiving the cup with both hands, Tursis gulped the content down her throat. The way she drank made it seem like she was very thirsty. Perhaps she's been waiting for him for a while. So what happened? You said something about yesterday earlier, right? About that. As though she truly finds it hard to say, Tursis averted her eyes away. Then after a short while, she turned back to Kaisai with a determined look on her face. Last night, I remembered my lord's kiss and I comforted myself. You comforted yourself? For a moment, Kaisai didn't understand what she was saying, but he realized it immediately after and his face cramped up. You mean, you mean like that? Yes. After hesitating for a while, Tursis replied with a complicated expression. She then stands up again with tears in her eyes. When I recall the feel of your lips, the bottom of my stomach just starts to tingle. I couldn't stand it. However, to lust after their own lord, that's not how a knight should conduct oneself. I can only apologize to my lord through my death. Please take my life. Seriously, it was the first time that a person confessed something like that to him. Since the other party is the serious Tursis, the impact it was on him is quite great as well. In a way, he's more surprised by this than Dirose's coming out as a masochist. Even so, it would also trouble Kaisai if Tursis has to die for such a silly reason. Due to the influence of the alcohol, his judgment was dulled and he made an immediate decision. Well, please sit down first. However, sit. Yes. Reluctantly, Tursis sits down on the bed again. Just like that, Kaisai silently stood up, walked in front of her, and takes her lips. Tursis couldn't react to that sudden kiss. She tried to pull her body away, but soon her eyes became blank. Eventually, she gently reached for Kaisai's body and tightly hugged him. Their kiss lasted for several minutes. Naturally, it would be bad if they started exchanging saliva now, so they didn't stick their tongue in. Still, Tursis had a clearly disappointed look when Kaisai parted his lips from hers. We may be master and servant, but aren't we also husband and wife? There's no particular problem if we lust after one another, you know. That's... Tursis tried to say something, but Kaisai immediately sealed her mouth with his lips. With this, Tursis has no choice but to stay quiet. When he pulled his lips back again, Tursis began gulping down her saliva. You know, actually... I'm also excited by Tursis San's body too. We are the same, right? Although he wouldn't normally say this, Kaisai is quite drunk today. Thanks to that, he is able to say such a thing without batting an eye. His unexpected words made her yelp in surprise. However, she doesn't hate that. Rather, she's quite happy by it, and she has a terribly excited look on her face. It's okay, you know, something like a kiss. We can do it as much as we like. Besides, well, I'm a little happy that you thought of me when you do it too. Happy? It's embarrassing, but yes, at least it is still better than you thinking of another man. Rather, I want you to think of me. Since they are in polygamy, he certainly felt that monopolizing her is wrong, but that was still Kaisai's real feeling. Understood. I will never think of another man. However, Tursis repeatedly nodded happily as she replied so. Moreover, she seems a lot more excited, and the sweet body odor specific to Volt starts to rise from her body. Then, I have an extremely impertinent request to ask of you, my lord. Perhaps her sexual desire and the joy from the acceptance by her lord are making her bring up an outrageous request. A picture. May I have a picture of you? A picture of my lord S. I mean I'm fine with my lord's lips, but I'm also curious about that other thing as well, said Tursis, and she glanced at Kaisai's body. Since he was drinking, his body temperature was higher than usual, and as a result, his appearance right now is quite suggestive from the perspective of a Vuld woman. While you're looking at it, you are going to do that? However, Kaisai was also not thinking straight due to the alcohol and Tursis's pheromone. On the other hand, when he asked her that question while throwing a suggestive glance at her, Tursis nodded with a bright red face. Then, there's no helping it, I guess. Kaisai agreed with a smile, but once he regains his usual sense he will regret that answer for a while. TLN, nice. CH 204, selfies. The next morning, Kaisai was writhing in self-loath in his bed. Because of the alcohol influence, he said something strange to Tursis last night. It would have been nice if he drank to the extent that he doesn't remember what happened last night, but unfortunately, he perfectly remembers what he did yesterday. What have I done? Kaisai was holding his head while moaning to himself. Last night he let Tursis take more than 100 risque pictures of him. He was rather into it last night, but when he thought about what he did, he couldn't help but feel like he just did something outrageous. It was just too embarrassing. Even while sinking in the sea of shame and despair, Kaisai also realized that he can't be rolling in his bed like this forever. With one last moan, he got up and checked the time on his mobile terminal. There, he found that he has tons of notifications on his message app. He opened it while cocking his head, wondering what was going on, but his face immediately cramped at what he saw. The sender was all Tursis. Every single one of them is an image instead of a message. Moreover, they are all lewd photos of the almost naked Tursis in various poses with expressions ranging from tired to satisfied, as if she just took them after finishing a workout. Naturally, the parts of her body that should not be seen were also exposed. She also looked to be embarrassed yet somewhat proud at the same time. The hell is this? The hell is this? With blood drained from his face, Kaisai jumped off his bed. These are the so-called erotic selfies. It's not really that strange for lovers to be exchanging this, but the other party is the head of a major aristocratic house. Pictures like this would only serve as a time bomb. Kaisai immediately leapt out of his room to confront her about it. He's still wearing his jerseys, which he usually uses as nightwear since he doesn't even have time to change. His destination is obviously Tursis's personal quarter. If it isn't my lord. Good morning. When Kaisai was sprinting full speed in the corridor, Tursis casually appeared in front of him. She looked strangely glowing today. Kaisai replied with, "Good morning," and immediately dragged her sleeves and pulled her into a deserted corner. Fortunately, Tursis was in a good mood and followed him without resisting. Foo. As expected of my lord. To think that you could immediately understand my wish." After confirming that there was no one around, Tursis grinned. Then, while Kaisai was wondering how to speak to her, she put her hand on his cheek and brought her face close to his. She's trying to kiss him. Wait. I still haven't brushed my teeth yet. I've already done it, so it's fine. Without listening to him, Tursis kissed his lips and moved to kiss his forehead. Since he told her that she can kiss him as much as she likes yesterday, it was hard for him to refuse now. After a sigh, he also kissed her back on the forehead in return. As I thought, you're so wonderful. Thank you, my lord. With the morning kiss done, Tursis was all smiles by herself. His earlier urgency was melted away by her happy look, but he cannot afford to give up. That aside, what's the meaning of this? Said Kaisai as he showed her the erotic selfies on his terminal. After a glance at it, Tursis shyly turns her eyes away. I was allowed to take such embarrassing pictures of my lord, so I thought that it would be rude if I did not return the favor. And how did that end with these erotic selfies? Well, but my lord said that you were excited by my body yesterday, so NNMGH. He did say that. In fact, the combination of her lustrous red hair and her dignified look was extremely beautiful to him. Moreover, her tallness and moderately muscular body are also very intriguing. However, He's now regretting letting her know about his thoughts about her body. That was clearly sexual harassment. No, it was the other side who started it first though. Last night ... I managed to get off 10 times from the photos I took ... That's why I thought I should repay my lord. 10 times? ... Is that too much? My apology. NNNNGH. Kaisai certainly thought that that was too much, but he just can't bring himself to say it. All he can do now is growl at himself. When he first met her, she seemed like the type that held no interest in anything other than fighting and her honor as a knight. But to think that someone can change this much. Leaving that aside, there is something I must inform you, my lord. What is it? Because of how he had to deal with this whole strange ordeal since morning, his mental power is already exhausted. He gives Tursis a slightly grudgeful glare to beg her not to give him any more headaches, but she nonchalantly looks back and calmly answers him as usual. It appears that the main force of the Norwegian army has begun to move. They finally came. The news seems to have blown away his mental fatigue in an instant, and his expression is now filled with energy and fighting spirit. Seeing him like that, Tursis also smiles ferociously. To intercept their movement, the Kalanchian fleet will sorties all ships at noon today. It appears that the decisive battle is finally upon us, my lord. CH 205. Preparation to the decisive battle. Kaisai and the others gathered in the ship's conference room. Despite it being early in the morning, all of their military executives had assembled for the meeting. Allow me to explain our situation, said Schleer as she stands in front of a large monitor. Perhaps she didn't have time to properly get dressed. Her long white hair was a mess. As most of you already know, there was a report from our intelligence department that the Norwegian fleet has departed from their country. Whispering immediately spread through the room. Some felt excited that they could finally get some action, while others were anxious about their chance of victory. The enemy fleet consists of 38 battleships and more than 150 auxiliary ships with an emphasis on destroyer class. Even after combining our Kalanchian standing army and the fleet under Lady Valentina's command, their fleet still tripled our size. We can expect an extremely tough battle ahead of us. The gap has widened even more than when the war first started, isn't it? One of the soldiers muttered with a quivering voice. The Kalanchian army as well as the rebels led by Valentina have suffered a lot of damage in the battles so far. On the other hand, Nord is mobilizing their entire force, which is incomparable in scale to the Kalanchia expeditionary fleet at the start of the war. Even if we count only their battleships, they still have 40 more than us. Just how much force they have left back home, I wonder? Kaisai whispered his opinion to Tursis, who was sitting at his side. The current difference in scale is simply despairing, but if their opponent still has a reserve force back home, then this will prove to be an even more difficult battle. There are some forces that cannot be mobilized outside the country in case of civil war and foreign threat. No matter how much I play it down, I believe that they still have a fleet of the same scale back at the homeland, my lord. So the actual size is twice as big. A superpower really is something, isn't it? That being said, Nord cannot afford to send everything at us. If we do not plan a counter-invasion, I don't think that we have to pay them any mind. Instead of a foreign invasion, the aristocrats of the Nord Empire are more afraid of a rebellion by its common class. After all, a world society is functioning by having a small number of aristocrats rule over the common mass. This is especially the case in a power-centric country such as Nord, so the majority of its military has to direct its attention at its own citizens. Have you predicted the enemy's route of invasion? It was Diarose who raised that question. Even though she has fallen to slavery, she still has a boastful attitude compared to everyone else here. It's likely that they will use the same route you did. The Norwegians wouldn't go out of their way to take a detour after all. An old woman who was sitting next to Schleer answered with a frown. She's the Kalanchian army's chief of staff, Rika Denza. She's still commanding battles from the front line despite her old age. Naturally, she has fought against Diarose on multiple occasions ever since the war began. It's certainly unavoidable for her not to have some qualms about Diarose's participation. Given the Empress's personality, it's possible that she might try to take us by surprise though. Still, it's true that with the incorporation of the noble army, she might not try anything strange this time. After all, they have more than enough force to trample Kalanchia. If the Empress wants to adopt a strategy to avoid a frontal battle, then the nobles will start to think that the Empress is a coward. From their perspective, They have to cover for Diaros's failure. That's why allowing the imperial family to suffer more disgrace is not an option. So, we are going to intercept them in the Gaily system. Recalling her past battles, Diaros asked. The Gaily system is on the outer edge of Kalanchia's territory and was the place where Noredian and Kalanchian fleets first engaged in the war. At that time, the Noredian fleet. In other words, Diaros ended up as the victor. Yes, according to the Starway, this place gives us the best chance at catching them. We've already repaired the defense equipment you destroyed in the initial attack as well. Although FTL has been established, the interstellar routes are still limited. Debris, strong electromagnetic fields, black holes. There are countless dangers in outer space. That's why the safe path for interstellar travel is the Starway, which has unmanned lighthouses installed at regular intervals. I see. That place. I remember it. Fume. Diaros put her thumb on her chin with a grin. A terribly nasty expression is on her face. It seems like she came up with some kind of evil plan again. Seeing her like that, both Schleer and the chief of staff stiffened. The defense equipment, huh? Then, we are going to that ice planet. Gaily, right? Yes, that is the plan. The chief of staff replies with a doubtful tone. The fifth planet in the Gaily system. Gaily is a stronghold fortified with artillery equipment. Considering the inferiority of their fleet, the main idea of their plan is to hold the defensive line here. Then, I have something that I want you to prepare. The chief of staff silently glared at Diaros. It's already awkward for her to be attending this meeting in the first place, but it's even more unagreeable when she's making calls like this. After all, the enemy general they will be fighting this time is Diaros's real mother. Well, why don't we listen to her first? Everyone here should already be well aware of her commanding ability. If she is willing to help us, then don't you think that she would be a reliable ally? Schleer proposed so. After all, she no longer thinks that Diaros is capable of betraying them. Rotten as she is, Diaros is still the woman who shared her first night with Kaisai. It's natural that she has formed a kind of companionship with her. If your highness says so. Okay, what do you want us to prepare? The chief of staff reluctantly agreed. Large-scale laser-triggered pure fusion warheads and multi-standard pulse engines for moving asteroids. I need as many of the former as possible. Just what are you planning to do with those things? The chief of staff could only open her eyes wide at Diaros's outrageous request. CH-206. The Ice Planet. The fifth planet of the Gaily system. Gaily, a frigid planet covered in layers of thick dry ice. The Kalanchian fleet and Valentina's fleet, which arrived there after more than a week of travel, carved out the surface made of white carbon ice blocks and docked their ships there. On the upper deck of the battlecruiser, radiant, a chill ran down Kaisai's back. Beyond his line of sight is a series of steep icebergs. The huge ice mountain range boasts an altitude well above the Everest on Earth, and it is terrifyingly intimidating. They have erected an airfield which provides them with breathing air and temperature on the level where they can operate outside without wearing thick jackets, but the scene before his eyes still sent a chill down his back. Additionally, because of how it is quite far away from the nearest star, the cold temperature and the lack of daylight even in the daytime here are quite unusual for him. How nostalgic. I wonder how many months it has been since I was last here. Next to Kaisai, Saki mutters so in a sentimental tone. She also participated in the first battle here, so this is her second time on this planet. I want to win this time though. Oi, how's our chance? Does it look good? Who knows? Diaros shrugged at the sudden question. This is the first time I fight a battle against an army 3 times the size of my own too. I can't say anything for sure. TSK. Just lie and say we can win or something. You think so too, right? While clicking her tongue, Saki wrapped her arm around Kaisai's shoulder. The crew who were resting and working around them started to give her a hateful glare. Don't go demoralize your own soldiers right before the battle. Diaros tears Saki off him in a fed-up manner. Perhaps because she hadn't been with him for a while, she's strangely clingy to Kaisai today. That being said, since Kaisai is seen as an idol by the soldiers, it's not good to flirt with him in front of them. Well, I will do what I can. Do your best too, okay? You don't have to tell me. Saki said that and went HMPH. It should be around 2 weeks until the Noredians arrive, huh? I'd like to get us ready as much as possible by then though. Saying so, Saki glanced at the icebergs. They are installing intercepting weapons such as anti-aircraft guns and missile pads there. They don't have much time left, but as long as they are fighting with an inferior number, no amount of preparation would be considered enough. Come to think of it, your top ace is the 4 heavenly, right? You talked with the last one and she's on our side now, isn't she? Where's she now? Right, I went that far for her. After all, I will cry if she can't make it in time for the battle, you know. Kaisai immediately jumped on Saki's question. After all, he went as far as promising to marry Eleanor. It would be bad if all that was for naught. That being said, even she wouldn't move against the will of her family head, right? As long as the head retainer managed to convince the family head, I think it will be fine. Dairose frowns and looks up at the sky. She also has her worries about Eleanor's matter. Eleanor herself was enthusiastic to join them and she wanted to come with them on this operation, but since her house still hasn't given a reply yet, her house arrest in the capital is still in effect. Seriously, it's all so disorganized. I also wish we had done something about her a little earlier. It was my mistake. Dairose said that with a difficult expression, but immediately after, her face turned nasty and she whispered something into Saki's ear. I think that woman is quite an aggressive type. I would advise you to deepen your friendship with Master before she gets here, you know. Saki has never directly met Eleanor before. However, she does know that she's from an upstart aristocratic house. That made an unpleasant thought come into her mind. Right, it wouldn't be funny if she suddenly starts throwing her weight around after all. What are you instigating her to do now? Kaisai stared at Dairose, who simply laughed and separated herself from Saki. Kaisai. Then, Schleer suddenly ran up to them. When the people around them heard her calling him without any honorifics, the eyes of the crew became sharp again. In the middle of the unfriendly gaze, Schleer froze for a moment before clearing her throat. She's done it again, thought Saki as she bitterly smiled at her. Kaisai-san, since we have time, we've decided to launch a training exercise for our troops. Do you want to participate? That sounds nice. I want to see the terrain around here for myself too. Since it's an interception battle, he wants to make the most of the advantage of the land. Naturally, Kaisai also wants to try flying around to check the place for himself. If that's the case, then I will go too. Saying so, Saki put her hand on Kaisai's shoulder. They finally finished refurbishing. Dainsleif, you see, I will definitely wash away my disgrace on Senstra here. Although not to the extent of Excalibur, Schleer and Saki's strikers were also modified from their engine to their weapons to combat the Noridian ultra-high-performance Zeniths. Besides, even though they are now allies, they still do not want the 4 Heavenly and Valentina to look down on them either. Thus they decided to go all out this time. I thought that you would say that, so I also invited that stalker Valentina-san to join us too. Nice, replied Saki with a ferocious smile on her face. TLN, I was thinking Star War, Battle of Hoth, but it's not quite that since they put their base on a mountain range.